Chapter 481. Is this the burrow? Onyxia's gaze swept over the peculiar structure before her, a smile playing on her lips. Despite its slightly crooked appearance, she found a unique artistic beauty in the small building. Normally, Onyxia would spend her days off visiting the magical creature sanctuary on the Isle of Man to oversee her dragon-blooded creature army. However, as operations at the sanctuary became more streamlined, her need to shuttle back and forth diminished. At the Ministry of Magic, despite being surrounded by colleagues, her directorial status meant that few approached her for genuine friendship, leaving her feeling somewhat isolated during her leisure time. This time, upon hearing Ethan discuss the completion of the magical TV, she was intrigued and decided to accompany him to witness this innovation. Hermione, who had also come along, had recently tackled some core technical challenges. After consulting with Ethan, she managed to convert the footage captured by the secret eye into a magical signal, leading to the creation of a magical signal transmitter. This device had been sent to the burrow a week earlier, requiring Arthur to adjust the magical TV to accommodate the new signal. Onyxia was also looking forward to visiting Ginny, marking her first encounter with Glenfendo's most notable gay friend. "Welcome, everyone," Mr. Arthur Weasley called out warmly from the nearby shack. His voice, brimming with cheerfulness, instantly made them feel welcome. Dressed in a simple canvas shirt and rigid trousers that seemed capable of standing on their own, his sheep-like curly red hair added to his eccentric appearance. Ethan scanned the surroundings, noting the absence of others besides Mr. Weasley. "Mr. Weasley, in your letter, you mentioned having successfully converted a Muggle television into a magical device?" he inquired politely after exchanging greetings. "Oh, yes, indeed," Mr. Weasley responded, his excitement palpable as he rubbed his hands together. "Please, follow me. I'm eager to show you my latest invention." He then led Ethan and the others towards the shack, enthusiastic about presenting the modified magical TV. The interior of the shack had undergone a transformation since Ethan's last visit. Previously scattered Muggle items were now neatly organized, giving the space a tidy appearance. Mr. Weasley opened a cleverly concealed door on the side of the shed, revealing a panel with several small windows that cast dappled light and shadows within. The shed's walls, adorned with large and small compartments, housed an array of whimsical Muggle inventions that Mr. Weasley had studied. Among them, a model airplane hovered mid-air, a small Iron Man joyfully cycled along a circular track, and a Dutch clock tap-danced to music, filling the air with its melodious chime. Onyxia's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she meticulously observed each object, though she refrained from touching them out of politeness. As Mr. Weasley opened the small door, Onyxia's attention shifted. Beyond the collection of Muggle curiosities, her gaze settled on a square table with drawers, atop which sat a large box. A light screen displayed a plump, kindly woman scolding a red-haired boy, their voices emanating clearly from the device. In that moment, several small wooden chairs flew towards them, arranged by Mr. Weasley, who invited them to sit and enjoy the magical television's display. Greeted warmly, they were invited to take a seat. Mr. Weasley then introduced his family with eloquence. "Look, this is my wife, Molly Weasley, and my son, George Weasley." Molly is usually very gentle, but George and his brother Fred are quite the pranksters. Over this summer vacation, they've been anything but idle, developing numerous prank products. It's rare for anyone to escape their mischief. Ethan couldn't help but smile awkwardly as he listened to Mr. Weasley's introduction. The twins' ability to develop so many prank products was significantly aided by his previous investment and technical support. Sorry, Ethan, I'm not blaming you," Mr. Weasley quickly clarified, realizing his words might have been misconstrued. "I just think that sometimes they really can be too mischievous, and even I find myself unable to resist their pranks." He then smiled awkwardly and shifted the topic to the television. "Come, take a look at this TV," Mr. Weasley said enthusiastically, pointing to the large box on the table, his eyes gleaming with pride. He was clearly very pleased with his modifications. According to the regulations of the Department for the Misuse of Muggle Articles, it can no longer directly receive Muggle television signals, Mr. Weasley explained. "However, I've ingeniously incorporated Mr. Green's illusion projection technology into the transformation process, allowing this TV to play videos recorded by the arcane eye. Ethan nodded, showing his understanding. Many of the laws from the Department for prohibiting the misuse of Muggle items were indeed promulgated by Arthur himself, who certainly wouldn't want to contradict his own regulations. Speaking of this secret eye, Mr. Weasley suddenly praised. What an amazing invention! The clarity of this picture is much better than any camera or Muggle TV we've used before. As a Muggle item modifier, Mr. Weasley had a keen appreciation for the ingenuity behind Ethan's invention. Ethan, feeling a bit embarrassed by the praise, modestly waved his hand and said, "Oh, you flatter me. This is what I mean," Mr. Weasley continued. "Moreover, I've made some adjustments to the videotape so that Muggle videotapes and our Wizarding videotapes are no longer interchangeable. The magical TV can play Muggle videotapes, but Muggles cannot play our videotapes. Now, as long as it's registered with the Ministry of Magic, the TV can be legally sold." With that, Mr. Arthur Weasley stood up joyfully and walked towards the side wall. He reached out and pushed open a small window on the roof, letting in a stream of fresh air along with the afterglow of the setting sun. Through the window, everyone's gaze was drawn to the dark signal receiver on the roof. Although it had been modified, it was hard to completely hide its original form. Oil stains and burnt food grease residue clung to it stubbornly. It had been a barbecue grill just a week ago. Mr. Weasley turned to everyone with a smile. "Take a look at this antenna. I modified it based on the signal transmitting device sent by Miss Granger. With this, our TV can not only play videotapes, but also receive signals from the signal transmitting device." Upon hearing this, Ethan stepped forward to examine the signal receiver more closely. Sensing the magic in the air, he asked thoughtfully, "Mr. Weasley, does this signal actually originate from inside the house?" "That's right, Ethan," Hermione interjected before Mr. Weasley could respond. "Our magic TV signal transmitting device is currently only an experimental model with limited power, so the signal coverage isn't wide. If we want the signal to cover the entire United Kingdom like the Muggle TV stations, we'll need to create a larger signal transmitting device and install several more relay devices in various locations." Ethan nodded slightly, absorbing the information before posing another crucial question. "Mr. Weasley, do you want to know how to change the TV channel?" Mr. Weasley asked with a smile, waving his wand. Instantly, the image of Mrs. Weasley was replaced by a beautiful girl with long, curly red hair, Ginny. In the picture, she appeared in a white nightgown, looking sleepy and conversing with her father. Upon realizing that Ethan might have seen her in this state through the video being recorded, she let out a scream and hurried back upstairs. "Oops, Dad!" The real Ginny, who had just finished applying her makeup and was descending the stairs to meet her boyfriend and best friend, exclaimed in unison with her televised counterpart. The sight of her idol witnessing her less-than-glamorous video left her face burning red, her freckles standing out more prominently against her flushed cheeks. Mr. Weasley, equally embarrassed, apologized. "I'm sorry, Ginny. I didn't expect this." Both Ginny's sleepy demeanor on screen and her shy presence in reality were endearing. Ethan, if not for the presence of her father, would have teased her. However, he chose to divert the conversation. "Mr. Weasley, your innovation is truly remarkable. Using a wand as a remote control is not only convenient, but also ensures that Muggles won't accidentally stumble upon Wizarding channels, thus keeping our world hidden. It's a safe and ingenious solution." Onyxia, the public opinion manager under Ethan and a shareholder of the Quibbler, nodded in agreement, deeply impressed by Mr. Weasley's creativity. She was convinced of the vast potential and market prospects of the Wizarding TV project envisioned by Ethan. Seeing Ethan's satisfaction, Arthur Weasley excitedly added, "Mr. Green, even without a wand-operated remote, Wizarding TVs would remain hidden from Muggles. Magical locations like Hogwarts disrupt electronic devices, rendering them inoperative. Our Wizarding TVs, like Wizarding radios, don't rely on electricity, but are powered purely by magic, making them inaccessible to Muggles." Ethan nodded in admiration. "Mr. Weasley, your foresight is commendable. This will greatly aid in the legal registration of Wizarding TV." He highlighted the importance of using distinct signals and activation methods from those of Muggles to avoid confusion and potential breaches of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy. After all, a magical item that closely resembles a Muggle item could easily be mistaken for its non-magical counterpart, risking the exposure of the wizarding world. Television, in particular, required careful consideration. Unlike radio, which might be dismissed as auditory hallucination, the visual impact of television was far more memorable. A Muggle accidentally viewing a wizarding TV broadcast would find it much harder to convince themselves it was merely an illusion. Chapter 482. After the official discussion concluded, Ethan glanced around before inquiring, "By the way, Mr. Weasley, why haven't I seen George and Fred?" At the mention of this, Arthur Weasley's brows furrowed, his expression turning anxious. "Ethan, are you aware of what's been happening with Harry recently? He received a letter from the Office for the Prohibition of Abuse of Magic at the Ministry of Magic for using the Patronus charm in front of a Muggle," he explained, pausing to sigh. "He has to attend a trial at the Ministry of Magic at 9 o'clock in the morning on August 12th. Ethan nodded in understanding. "Of course, I'm aware of it." He had not only heard about the incident, but had also witnessed Harry using the Patronus charm. Arthur continued, "Sirius has invited us to the Black family's old house to discuss countermeasures. You're familiar with the location, as Sirius mentioned you visited a few years ago. Molly took the children there, except for Ginny, who insisted on staying here to wait for you." Upon hearing her father mention this, Ginny's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and she shyly lowered her head, unnoticed by Mr. Weasley. He sighed softly. At least Sirius can somewhat control his temper in front of the children. He's been quite upset recently because of Harry's situation. "What happened with Sirius?" Ethan asked, puzzled. Arthur explained he was angry with Dumbledore over this incident. He felt that Dumbledore had failed to protect Harry adequately. "I understand his frustration. He had kept his distance from Harry at Dumbledore's request, only for something like this to happen. It was truly unexpected." Changing the subject, Mr. Weasley appeared slightly embarrassed. "Oh, by the way, Ethan, you must have received Dumbledore's letter, right? I've been home this time mainly to finish the final modifications to the TV. I'm sorry, but I'm not much of a cook, so I can't offer you a hearty lunch." Ethan waved his hand dismissively. "That's all right, Arthur. We all know your expertise lies in magic and machinery. A simple lunch will do." "Dad, let me handle it," Ginny suddenly interjected, glancing at Ethan shyly before volunteering. "I'll take care of lunch. My mother and I have learned quite a bit of cooking magic during the holiday." "Great, Ginny. It's all yours then," Arthur responded, clearly pleased. His daughter had grown up. It seemed Mr. Lovegood's outdated views on women's education hadn't influenced him. Hermione and Onyxia, having noticed Ginny's initiative, exchanged looks. Onyxia gave Ethan an ambiguous glance, while Hermione snorted in displeasure. After resolving the lunch issue, Mr. Weasley suddenly remembered something important. "Oh, by the way, Ethan, Harry was actually defending himself from Dementors at the time. He only used magic to protect himself," he said, rubbing his hands together with a hint of hesitation. "Ms. Jaina Proudmoore is now the new director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. I wonder if she could oversee this case more fairly and help Harry clear his name?" "If possible, Sister Gianna would certainly be pleased," Ethan replied. However, before Arthur could celebrate, Ethan added, "But for this trial, Minister Fudge has requested to preside as the judge himself." Ethan spread his hands apologetically. "We can't refuse the Minister of Magic's request." Upon hearing this, Arthur couldn't help but curse. "Damn it, it's merely a minor issue of underage magic use, something everyone does during the holidays. Now it has to be tried in a formal criminal court, with the Minister of Magic personally overseeing it. This is utterly ridiculous." It was rare to see Arthur lose his temper, the only other recent cause being Percy's departure from home. Seeing Arthur's distress, Ethan offered a sympathetic look. He comforted him. "Arthur, please don't worry. Harry and I are together, and Lee is also a good friend. When the time comes, those on our side will vote for him and acquit him." Arthur felt a wave of relief wash over him upon hearing Ethan's words, and he let out a long sigh of relief. Jaina Proudmoore's influence is vast, commanding half of the Ministry of Magic. Although this doesn't guarantee half of the votes at the Wizengamot conference, it's still a significant support. Hermione thought to herself, however, I believe Harry's innocence will soon be proven, and we probably won't need to rely on the jury's vote. Soon it was lunchtime, and Ginny presented the delicacies she had meticulously prepared. She had fully inherited her mother Molly's culinary skills, and this was her first time cooking for the boy she admired. Her enthusiasm was evident. The dishes were exceptionally tasty, and Ginny even made Mrs. Weasley's signature honey pudding. Arthur praised his daughter's cooking, but he failed to notice that Ginny's gaze was constantly fixed on Ethan. Whenever Ethan tasted a dish and smiled in satisfaction, Ginny's face would light up with joy. The afternoon passed leisurely at the Burrow, with Ethan and his companions staying until it was almost dinner time. Before leaving, Ethan waved goodbye to Arthur and Ginny. Arthur, thank you for managing such a transformation in such a short time. I'll send the relevant personnel to contact you soon to collect the transformation data records. I believe it won't be long before these TV sets will be in Wizards' living rooms. The Weasleys and their daughters escorted them to the courtyard entrance. Mr. Weasley, it's time for us to head back. Don't worry too much. Harry will be fine. And Ginny, see you at my house. After shaking hands with Arthur again, Ethan, Hermione, and Onyxia gradually disappeared from view. Arthur and Ginny stood at the door, watching them leave. The morning sunshine filtered through the breeze and into Ethan's master bedroom, casting a warm glow on the soft bed. The busyness of the previous night seemed to have been dispelled by the warm sunshine, leaving only tranquility. Ethan was still deep in sleep, but Jiangchu beside him had woken up early. She turned to gaze at Ethan's peaceful face, captivated. Well, it's time to get up, she whispered, nudging his shoulder gently. Ethan didn't stir. Jiangchu smiled, stretched out her hand, and gently poked Ethan's cheek. After several attempts, Ethan finally opened his eyes, his voice heavy with sleep. He yawned, seemingly ready to fall back asleep, but Jiangchu was persistent. She slipped out of bed, letting the silky sheets glide off her skin, and leaned over Ethan, reminding him, "You promised to accompany me for morning exercise." Jiangchu had adopted the habit of morning exercise from Cirilla and enjoyed the fresh air and the joy of movement. Unfortunately, Cirilla woke up too early for her, so she often asked Ethan to join her. "You can ask Hermione to accompany you," Ethan mumbled, yawning again and turning over, hoping to continue his dream. Jiangchu looked at Ethan's reluctance with a mix of amusement and affection. She remembered Cirilla mentioning that she thought about the Reimagined. During the summer vacation of his first year, Ethan would accompany Cirilla for morning exercises every day. Cirilla, even back then, woke up as early as she does now. Nowadays, Ethan sleeps until Jiangchu wakes up, and if he wishes to stay in bed longer, it can only be said that Ethan is becoming lazier. "Oh, why don't you just get up early and join me? Think of it as keeping in shape," Jiangchu suggested, looking at Ethan's handsome face and affectionately kissing his forehead. "Besides, didn't you mention you had something to do early today?" Unable to resist any longer, Ethan finally left the warm embrace of his quilt. Urged by Jiangchu, he got up, brushed his teeth, changed his clothes, and slowly made his way to the courtyard. The sunlight, filtering through the gaps in the treetops, draped the courtyard in a golden glow. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of flowers. Thanks to the meticulous care of the flower fairies, a variety of ordinary and magical flowers in the courtyard bloomed in an enchanting display. They broke free from the constraints of nature, blooming in cycles that decorated the space as beautifully as a fairyland. The artificial maid, Gwen, had already prepared black tea and snacks. After refueling with energy and hydration, Ethan and Jiangchu began stretching. Despite his usual laziness, Ethan kept pace with Jiangchu, jogging along the path in the yard under the bright morning light. Soon, Hermione joined them. Jiangchu, hailing from the Dragon Kingdom, believed that according to potion theory, more exercise helps maintain youth. Hermione, convinced by this, especially after hearing that white people might age more easily than those of Asian descent, didn't want to let time leave its mark on her without a fight. Seeing Jiangchu's enthusiasm for sports, she was determined not to be outdone. After their run, Ethan took towels from Gwen and handed them to Jiangchu and Hermione, who were slightly out of breath. He gently wiped the sweat from their foreheads. Then, they returned to the living room to rest. Ethan, leaning back in his chair with a towel, listened to the soft music playing from the magic radio station while flipping through the Daily Prophet on the table. Zhangqiu and Hermione moved to a soft mat and began doing yoga. Dressed in tight-fitting yoga attire, their graceful curves were accentuated, creating a captivating scene that even made Ethan consider joining them for morning exercises. Update 4/3, additional update 96-110. I kindly request your support with custom orders, flowers, monthly votes, reviews, and rewards. Your votes are incredibly important to me as the author. Thank you. Chapter 483. Ethan admired it for a long time until he noticed the two women staring at him. He then shifted his attention back to the Daily Prophet in his hands. The original article about Harry Potter's suspected Dementor attack had vanished, as if someone had erased the incident entirely. Ethan knew this must be the Ministry of Magic's doing, or more precisely, Fudge's will. The Minister of Magic clearly didn't want the incident to escalate and become public knowledge, especially since everyone was aware of who controlled the Dementors. Unlike Dumbledore, Harry didn't have the same level of protection or influence. If the Ministry wanted to punish him, it would be easier and more discreet to do so without stirring public opinion. However, the situation was far from simple. Sirius's counterattack article had exploded like a bombshell in the wizarding world. The magazine Rumor had spread far and wide, causing quite a stir among the British wizarding community. In such a vast magical world, not everyone could be fooled. A significant number of wizards had started to see through the Daily Prophet's facade, recognizing it as a tool for manipulating public opinion, while the real news and truth were buried in darkness. For most readers, their attitude toward the Daily Prophet had shifted to one of disdain. Initially, the 077 report smearing Dumbledore was taken lightly, seen as a source of amusement amidst the fear of Voldemort's return. Dumbledore, accused of spreading panic, was mocked and ridiculed in the papers, much to the amusement of some. However, as the Daily Prophet's attacks on Dumbledore and Harry Potter grew more vicious and baseless, public sentiment began to change. Important news and events were deliberately ignored, leading to widespread disgust. Facing declining sales and a loss of readers, the Daily Prophet had to find a way to salvage the situation. They started adding more advertising space in an attempt to attract merchants and compensate for their losses. This led to a decrease in the quality and selectiveness of their advertisements. Ethan even noticed an advertisement by the Weasley twins. Why worry about you-know-who when you should be concerned about constipation, you-know-poo? The torment of constipation is unbearable. Hermione and Zhangqiu burst into laughter upon seeing the advertisement. This advertisement is too funny, Zhangqiu said, covering her mouth. Hermione, trying to contain her laughter, added, It's indeed interesting. I didn't expect Fred and George to be so creative. That's great, Ethan said, raising his eyebrows proudly. I designed that advertising slogan for them. You designed it? Hermione asked in surprise. I didn't expect you to have such a sense of humor. The Weasley twins' business was booming. Since making their first significant profit at Hogwarts, they had been planning to expand and increase production. Although they didn't have a formal store yet, their products were being sold worldwide through owl mail order. Just then, Gwen hurried over with a letter in her hand. Master, here is your urgent letter. She handed the letter to Ethan. The envelope bore the Ministry of Magic's W seal. Ethan knew immediately what it meant. He put down the Daily Prophet, opened the letter, and a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Without a doubt, the letter was from the Wizengamot, requesting Ethan's presence at the Ministry of Magic for a trial. As for whose trial it was naturally the famous Harry Potter's. This was the benefit that power and fame brought to Ethan. Otherwise, the Wizengamot would definitely not have sent an invitation letter to an underage wizard. Jaina had informed Ethan a long time ago that she had helped him apply for the position of youth representative of the Wizengamot in the United Kingdom. The matter was basically settled, and no one openly opposed it. After all, Ethan's achievements were too significant. In addition to a series of academic achievements, he had defeated many dark creatures and dozens of Arc Wizards in the finals of the Tri-Wizard tournament. With such a brilliant record to back it up, even a fool wouldn't object to this. Ethan glanced at the clock on the wall and then said to the girls in the room, "I have to go out and take care of some things." Zhang Chu, who had just finished yoga, frowned upon hearing Ethan's words. "Where are you going? You're not going to do anything dangerous again, are you?" Ethan's sudden trip to the Ural Mountains to capture a bunch of giants was still fresh in her memory. This made her a bit worried recently, always fearing that Ethan would suddenly do something reckless, like challenging Voldemort to a duel on a whim. "A letter from the Ministry of Magic, the Wizengamot, inviting me to attend a trial," Ethan said cheerfully. "It's Harry Potter's trial. How could I miss such an important event?" "Remember to bring photos." Hermione also reminded, "Don't let Fudge's conspiracy succeed." "I won't let anything happen to Harry," Ethan nodded and smiled mischievously. "But to do this, I need a little encouragement." As he spoke, he pointed to his lips. "There's really nothing I can do about you," Hermione said, a bit shy in front of Zhang Chu, but she still mustered up the courage, stood on tiptoes, and gently kissed Ethan on the lips. Zhang Chu also stepped forward generously and gave Ethan an affectionate hug and kiss goodbye. "Be careful on the road and come back soon. By the way, will you be back for lunch?" she suddenly asked again. "If I haven't come back before 12:30, you don't have to wait for me," Ethan replied, standing up. Gwen thoughtfully brought him a beef burger and a glass of fizzing Whizbee's Happy Water for breakfast. "However, I don't think it will take too long. Maybe I'll be back while you guys are still cooking." Before he left, the artificial maid Oriana was waiting outside. After changing the location, Ethan teleported directly to the guest phone booth of the Ministry of Magic. He had been here many times before and was familiar with all the procedures. Instead of wearing the badge provided by the phone booth, Ethan pinned a delicate silver W badge on his left chest. He tapped his clothes with his wand again, and in the blink of an eye, he donned the purple-red standard Wizengamot robe. "The Ministry of Magic hopes you have a great day," a rigid and indifferent female voice came from the receiver of the phone booth, reciting blessings as if mechanically. Ethan adjusted his robe to ensure that every detail was perfect. The door of the phone booth opened with a click. Cyrilla, who had short gray hair and a dashing appearance, had been waiting at the door for a long time. Beside her, her best friend Penelo looked at her with a smile. When Ethan walked out of the phone booth, Cyrilla immediately greeted him and gave him a warm hug. "You finally came." They stood at the end of a long and splendid hall. The dark wooden floor was polished brightly and reflected their figures. The peacock blue ceiling was inlaid with golden symbols, which were constantly moving and changing like a huge high-altitude bulletin board. The four walls were lined with glossy dark wooden panels, giving the hall a solemn and elegant appearance. Many gilded fireplaces were set in the wood panels, emitting a warm glow. Ethan had arrived so early that the clock had only just turned to 8 o'clock in the morning. Only a few people in the hall were wearing purple robes like Ethan, adorned with delicate silver embroidery on their left chest. The wizards were chatting leisurely. Occasionally, wizards in black Ministry of Magic uniforms hurried past the fireplace, their faces etched with urgency. "Ethan, I just saw Blake getting off the elevator on the 2nd floor. He must have gone to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement," Cyrilla whispered, her words softly floating to Ethan's ears, making him feel a slight shiver. Ethan nodded slightly, and his cheeks inadvertently brushed against her soft lips. The light touch sent a tingling sensation through him. He coughed twice to cover up his embarrassment and gently stepped back from Cyrilla's embrace amidst Penelo's sweet laughter. Penelo seemed in high spirits, and Ethan couldn't help but frown slightly as he observed her excitement without taking it too seriously. Suddenly, he opened his arms towards her, as if offering a hug. This gesture startled Penelo, fearing that her inner feelings would be revealed. She looked at Cyrilla, confused, but seeing no displeasure on her face, she stepped forward and hugged Ethan gently. Although brief, this hug intensified the emotions she had been trying to suppress. Ethan's psychic power captured this drastic psychological change. He then led the way through the solemn and mysterious doors of the Ministry of Magic. They arrived at a smaller hall with at least 20 elevators, each enclosed by an exquisite golden gate, exuding both luxury and mystery. With a jingle and click, an elevator descended in front of them. The golden gate slid open slightly, and Ethan stepped in first, followed by Sorella and Penelo. The gate slammed shut behind them, and the elevator began its ascent. The chain rattled, and a cold female voice guided them. The elevator continued its descent without stopping, carrying only Ethan, Sorella, and Penelo, creating a delicate atmosphere. Sorella, seemingly unconcerned about Penelo's presence, leaned directly on Ethan's shoulder. "Do you know," she said softly, a hint of grievance in her tone. "Before graduation, I naively thought we could still see each other often during your holidays, even if I started working. But since becoming an auror, I've been as busy as a top, with no free time at all. And your holidays have been occupied by Zhangqiu and Hermione. You've been with them all the time. Have you forgotten me?" With that, Sorella bit Ethan's shoulder in a show of grievance. Ethan did not dodge or use magic to resist. Instead, he wrapped one arm around Sorella's waist and gently comforted her. They remained silent for a while, and Sorella relaxed, ceasing her complaints. She rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, enjoying the brief moment of peace. The scene depicted a tender moment between Ethan and Sorella, highlighting the complexity of their emotions and relationships. Chapter 484. At the same time, Ethan glanced at Penelo beside him, ensuring Sorella couldn't see. He winked at her and motioned for her to come closer. Initially hesitant, Penelo soon found Ethan to be more decisive than she had anticipated. His free hand swiftly captured her graceful waist, pulling her forward. Without Ethan's support, she would have almost leaned against Sorella's back. Consequently, her face was involuntarily brought in front of Ethan's. Without hesitation, Ethan leaned in and captured Penelo's lips. Penelo initially wanted to push Ethan away, but Sorella's presence made it impossible. Any attempt to push him away risked bumping into Sorella and drawing her attention, which would have been disastrous. Ethan, understanding this dilemma, seized the opportunity to press his advantage. He was relentless, quickly breaking through Penelo's defenses. Overwhelmed by Ethan's unexpected and skillful advance, Penelo found herself dizzy and lost in the moment. When they finally parted, her face radiated allure, and her gaze towards Ethan was so tender it seemed to weave threads between them. Penelo had harbored feelings for Ethan since their graduation, feelings complicated by her friendship with Sorella. This secret intimacy, conducted literally behind her best friend's back, thrilled her with a sense of betrayal she couldn't resist. Time, however, seemed to accelerate, and soon the elevator door opened, announcing their arrival at the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. "Right here," Sorella announced, standing up straight. Penelo gently squeezed Ethan's hand before letting go. They adjusted their clothes and exited the elevator as if nothing had happened. The corridor outside was lined with offices. A half-open window allowed a beam of sunlight to slant in, lighting their path and reflecting the bright moods of Sorella and Penelo. Even Sorella, often viewed with suspicion by the aurors, couldn't hide her smile, and Penelo, usually so serious, allowed a rare smile to grace her lips. As they turned a corner, they encountered Sirius Black engaged in a secretive exchange with a disheveled wizard in a purple robe. Sirius was handing over a bag that clinked with the sound of gold, clearly a bribe for his godson Harry's sake. The two men noticed Ethan's gaze and quickly departed, leaving Sirius looking awkward and lost. Ethan approached Sirius with a slight smile. "Mr. Black, I was actually looking for you," he said, his tone calm and natural, as if oblivious to the preceding events. Holding up a thin, sealed brown paper document bag, he added, "This could help clear Harry of any suspicion." His voice was serious, suggesting the importance of the contents within the bag. "Urged us to confront Fudge now. If you want it, you must sign a confidentiality contract. Before I give you permission, you cannot tell anyone that I gave it to you, not even Dumbledore." Sirius Black's eyes sparkled with excitement. Without any hesitation, he solemnly signed the magical confidentiality contract under the witness of Sorella and Penelo. Ethan handed the brown paper folder to Sirius, who eagerly opened it. His eyes quickly scanned the photos, his nose twitched slightly, and then he looked up at Ethan, his joy tinged with strong suspicion. "How did you get these photos?" After examining them, Sirius carefully placed the photo back into the folder. Ethan smiled slightly and explained, "When I received Dumbledore's letter, I had a feeling that Harry's alienation could be exploited by those with malicious intentions. Therefore, I decided to protect him secretly. If Harry was unable to use the Patronus charm at the most critical moment, I would not hesitate to help him, even if it might expose my position to Fudge." He paused, then continued, "Mr. Black, please consider this. The root cause of the current situation is that you left Harry and allowed him to escape your protection. Professor Dumbledore is indeed the greatest white wizard of our time, but the advice he gives you may not always be the best for you. He has his own agenda. Why? I'll need to learn to make your own judgments instead of relying on others for your life and Harry's." Ethan's words made Sirius nod unconsciously. He had been frustrated with Dumbledore for this reason before. At that moment, the unshaven wizard who had just stepped aside hurried over. "Blake, Fudge has moved the interrogation up by an hour and changed the location." The wizard handed over a piece of paper with the new time and place written on it, nodded to Ethan, adjusted his hat, and left in a hurry. Sirius quickly glanced at the paper, his expression turning anxious. "Sorry, Ethan, I have to find Dumbledore right now. He probably doesn't know that the interrogation time has been moved up, but he is Harry's defender, and this evidence is crucial to him." He was about to leave without waiting for Ethan's response. Ethan stretched out his hand to stop him. "Wait, Mr. Black. You may not have enough time. I suggest you go directly to the Inquisition." "But Dumbledore," Sirius began, but Ethan cut him off. "The key now is time, not Dumbledore. When the trial comes, you'd better move quickly and present this evidence directly. These photos are enough to prove Harry's innocence." "Is that it?" Sirius couldn't believe it could be so simple. "That's it," Ethan assured him. "Remember, don't delay, so as not to give Fudge and others the opportunity to manipulate Harry into saying something detrimental to himself. They may use more tricks to complicate the trial." "I see," Sirius nodded, but couldn't help asking, "But what about Dumbledore?" "Mr. Black, you have to get used to not relying so much on Dumbledore," Ethan reminded him softly. Sirius listened to Ethan's words, a flash of hesitation in his eyes. He knew Ethan was right, but having relied on Dumbledore for so long, making decisions on his own felt daunting. Yet, for his godson, driven by his protective instincts, he quickly made a decision, his trust in Ethan overcoming his doubts. "You're right, Ethan. I will go directly to the Inquisition now. Thanks for your advice." After saying that, Sirius turned and walked towards the trial court. A few minutes later, in front of the gloomy door of the 10th courtroom, Dumbledore, adjusting his iconic crescent-shaped glasses, was ready to enter. The black door, adorned with a large iron lock, exuded an ominous aura. Dumbledore took a deep breath and Ethan twisted the heavy lock on the door. The iron handle creaked open slowly with a dull sound. He walked into the trial room calmly and made his way into the courtroom, surveying the area. At this moment, he was quite confident that Fudge's schemes had failed to deceive him. Ethan was well aware of the time and place of the new trial and had arrived on schedule. Moreover, he had a witness unknown to Fudge, Mrs. Fig. Squibs, often overlooked by the Ministry of Magic, were not expected by the Ministry to be living near Harry's residence. This time, Ethan aimed to outmaneuver the Ministry with a force they underestimated. "The defense calls Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore," he announced in a calm and loud voice that resonated throughout the courtroom, drawing everyone's attention. Dumbledore approached Harry, looking over his half-moon glasses at Fudge. His silver-white beard and hair gleamed in the torchlight. The members of the Wizengamot, previously whispering among themselves, looked up in surprise at the legendary wizard. The courtroom fell silent, only to be broken by chuckles from a corner. At this moment, Fudge was too overwhelmed to respond, his forehead glistening with sweat. Beside him, Umbridge was frantically trying to explain something to Sirius, who was demanding accountability from the Ministry for their mishandling of the Dementors. Harry, the subject of the trial, wasn't in the dock, but was casually seated on a nearby bench, sharing snacks Ethan had brought, chatting and laughing. Dumbledore, taken aback by the scene, hadn't anticipated this turn of events. He expected a tense atmosphere, with Fudge on the offensive, Sirius anxious, and Harry waiting rescue. It's over, Headmaster. Harry couldn't help but interject. The trial has concluded. The Ministry's charges against me were unfounded. Harry had been out of touch with the wizarding world for a month, a situation orchestrated by Dumbledore, who had advised against contacting him. Initially upset with Dumbledore's actions, Harry now felt a mix of pity and amusement, seeing Dumbledore's embarrassed and humbled demeanor. Dumbledore, caught off guard by Harry's update, finally allowed a genuine smile to cross his face, a rare moment of vulnerability. Chapter 485. The heavy door of the courtroom slowly opened, and the members of the Wizengamot filed out, their robes rustling as they walked, accompanied by whispered discussions. Cornelius Fudge and Dolores Umbridge lingered at the end, Umbridge's eyes fixed on Harry, with an intensity that felt like she was trying to pierce a hole through him. Harry, feeling the weight of her gaze, quickly left the interrogation room as if to escape. As the room emptied, Fudge approached Umbridge with a reproachful tone. "Dolores, you need to manage your people better. I don't want any more trouble." "Yes, Mr. Minister," Umbridge replied submissively, though she was internally flustered by the unexpected evidence Sirius had arranged to protect Harry, showcasing the Dementor's attack. In the corner of the auditorium, Ethan coughed lightly and stood up, catching Fudge's attention. Fudge's expression softened slightly upon recognizing Ethan and signaled Umbridge to leave. As Umbridge passed Ethan, she offered a sycophantic smile, which Ethan politely returned despite his discomfort. Umbridge, seemingly buoyed by the interaction, quickly left the courtroom with her documents and belongings. "Ethan, could we have a moment to talk?" Fudge invited, eager for a private conversation. "Trust me, it won't take much of your time." Ethan, having anticipated this moment, gracefully accepted. "Of course, Minister. It would be my honor." Fudge led Ethan out of the courtroom, both men walking in silence to the elevator. They exchanged occasional glances with other wizards who looked on curiously but received no acknowledgement from either man. They proceeded to the first floor of the Ministry of Magic, where the minister's office was located. Upon entering his office, Fudge appeared visibly more relaxed. He removed his magic robe, revealing a white shirt beneath, and sat behind his large desk. The office's atmosphere provided a comforting sense of ease. With a snap of his fingers, a tray bearing fragrant black tea and golden biscuits appeared on his desk. "Ethan, please have a seat," Fudge gestured, pouring 2 cups of Ceylon Lowland black tea. As the aroma filled the room, Fudge began, "Ethan, I must be candid with you. The incident with Harry took us by surprise. The Dementors attacking him was unprecedented. We're in a difficult situation. We must handle this delicately to avoid tarnishing the Ministry's reputation." Fudge offered Ethan some biscuits, attempting to lighten the mood. However, Ethan, familiar with such tactics from his experiences with Dumbledore, remained focused on Fudge, waiting for him to continue. Fudge, slightly embarrassed by Ethan's lack of interest in the biscuits, realized he needed to get straight to the point. Ethan forced a smile, resembling an uncle fondly looking at his favorite nephew. "Ethan, I hope the Quibbler will remain silent about what is happening in court today." He finally revealed his true intention, his voice tinged with a plea. Ethan lowered his head, sinking into deep thought. After a moment, he slowly responded, "Minister, even if the Daily Prophet and the Quibbler choose not to report it, I'm afraid Sirius won't give up easily. He will certainly seek other outlets to expose this story." Hearing this, Fudge's face darkened slightly, and he immediately thought of the troublesome Rumor magazine. In a panic, he waved the biscuit in his hand, causing a few raisins to roll onto the table. He looked at the scattered raisins with disgust, as if they were the embodiment of his troubles. The influence of those third-rate media is limited, far less than that of the Daily Prophet and the Quibbler. Fudge tried to sound more convincing. As long as we can ensure that these 2 mainstream media do not report this matter, the adverse effects can be controlled within acceptable limits. Ethan shook his head and clasped his hands together. "Minister, we cannot avoid the problem. This is indeed the Ministry of Magic's responsibility for its poor supervision of the Dementors, and we must face the consequence. Fudge was taken aback for a moment, then raised his voice in concern. "Does Jaina want to take back control of the Dementors?" He mistakenly thought Ethan was implying that Jaina hoped to use this opportunity to regain the authority that should belong to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. This possibility filled him with annoyance and worry. "Minister, you misunderstood. We have no intention of shirking responsibility," Ethan quickly reassured him, seeing Fudge's reaction. "What I mean is, instead of trying to control the media's narrative, it's better to hold the person who made the management mistake accountable." Fudge's expression showed his disapproval, but Ethan continued to explain. "Mr. Minister, you know Sirius Black's character very well. If we choose to ignore the facts, he may protest more vehemently and even take more radical actions. Only by showing him that someone is accountable and receiving the punishment they deserve can we pacify him." Ethan paused, emotion evident in his voice. "Consider this. He spent 13 years in Azkaban due to a miscarriage of justice. Now, his godson Harry has faced a similar injustice. Given Sirius's temperament, he didn't even seek compensation, only wanting to see Peter Pettigrew punished. It's clear that the more we suppress him, the stronger his backlash will be." The teacup in Fudge's hand stopped spinning. "You mean to hold Dolores accountable?" Fudge frowned, hesitating. "No, if I can't protect my people, what will others in the ministry think of me? They will lose faith." Despite his flaws, Fudge was acutely aware of a crucial issue. He understood that his power stemmed from having subordinates who were willing to follow him. Without them, he was merely a figurehead. To maintain such loyalty, he could offer only two things: shared ideals or mutual benefits. Given Fudge's lack of political ideals, all he could provide were benefits, including security. This is a fundamental political principle, and from this perspective, Ethan's suggestion seemed naive. If such a proposal had come from a seasoned ministry employee like Jaina, Fudge would have suspected an attempt to undermine his authority. Ethan raised his eyebrows slightly. He knew Fudge would likely reject such a suggestion, but his intention wasn't to persuade the minister to take immediate action. Ethan knew very well that it would be challenging to confront Umbridge directly before Fudge's authority was significantly weakened. With this in mind, he offered a seemingly unreliable suggestion to pave the way for his next proposal. After feigning contemplation for a moment, Ethan presented another idea. "Perhaps you could consider reclaiming direct control over the Dementors. This would serve as a form of punishment for Umbridge due to her poor management, while also allowing you to appear protective of her by not completely stripping her of her position." Fudge's eyes brightened upon hearing this. Finding the strategy viable, he thought to himself, "This way, control over the Dementors remains securely in my hands, which could appease Sirius's anger and ensure the Ministry of Magic's stability." Feeling reassured, Fudge stood up, regained his composure, and refilled the black tea in both his and Ethan's cups. He then gracefully returned to his chair behind the desk, teacup in hand. "So, Ethan, can you tell me how the Quibbler plans to cover this?" "Of course, Minister. It's unthinkable for us to ignore the story entirely," Ethan replied with a wink. "However, we can choose to disclose certain details and employ more neutral language to describe the incident. This approach adheres to journalistic integrity while preventing unnecessary panic and misunderstanding. The report doesn't need to be lengthy, it just needs to be succinct and clear." Chapter 486. Ethan agreed to help Fudge, but he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he took this opportunity to present his own conditions. He shifted the conversation, saying, "Oh, by the way, Minister, I need your assistance with something. Did you know I'm planning to establish a TV station?" Fudge was momentarily taken aback, his eyebrows lifting in surprise. This topic was unexpected. Although Fudge had heard some mentions of this project from his subordinates, he was not fully informed about it. He quickly reviewed his memory to ensure he hadn't overlooked any relevant directives, then responded, "Huh? Has anyone in the ministry been causing problems for you? I've made it clear that your legal projects should not face any obstacles. As long as you avoid using Muggle technology recklessly, they should approve." Ethan waved his hand, clarifying, "Minister, you've misunderstood. We've learned from the experiences of the Yin Kingdom Wizard Broadcasting Company. In designing our Magic TV, we took great care to isolate it from Muggle TV. Our TV signals and energy are completely incompatible with the Muggle world, ensuring compliance with the Secrecy Act. In fact, the TV station's procedures went smoothly, and we've completed the product registration. The Yin Kingdom Wizard Broadcasting Company was the wizarding world's first foray into television, founded in the early 1980s by a group of ambitious wizards. However, their use of Muggle technology to broadcast programs accessible to Muggles led to their arrest for serious breaches of the International Confederation of Wizards Statute of Secrecy, resulting in a swift ban by the Ministry of Magic. "So, Ethan, how exactly can I assist you?" Fudge asked, his brow furrowed. Although he didn't fully grasp the concept of the TV station Ethan described, he sensed no legal violations in the proposal. Ethan smiled slightly, explaining, "We can't remain the only TV station in the wizarding world forever. As the wizarding world evolves, more visionaries will undoubtedly enter this industry. Therefore, I propose that the Ministry of Magic establish a special department for unified management." He continued, "Given that this is an emerging industry, I believe Miss Gianna should decide on the head of this department. As the first Ministry of Magic official to engage with this matter, she has a deep understanding of the industry." Ethan elaborated further to ensure Fudge understood. "This approach allows us to address issues from both government management and TV station operation perspectives, enabling continuous, targeted improvements. Ultimately, we can develop the most reasonable management laws." Ethan's proposal sounded noble, but it essentially suggested being both a participant and a regulator in the industry. Fudge pondered the potential implications of creating this new department. "Ethan, could you specify the functions of this new department? I want to avoid any overlap with existing departments," Fudge inquired. "Of course, please rest assured that we're not planning to alter the current structure of the Ministry of Magic," Ethan assured him. "The authority and scope of this new department will be confined to managing the film and television industry and related content. It will not interfere with the routine operations of other departments and will function as an independent entity. I hope you can grant your permission for this." "We can carry out our work smoothly." Fudge gradually understood Ethan's true intentions. He realized that this was the condition Ethan proposed in exchange for a low-key handling of the Dementor attack. However, Fudge was concerned that Jaina's group might seize the opportunity to control the new media. Despite Ethan's convincing reasons, Fudge couldn't predict the impact this so-called TV station would have on the wizarding world, nor could he determine whether the conditions were reasonable. "In fact, we have already built several prototypes and invited Mr. Tilden Toots and Miss Fleur Delacour, the well-known hosts of the Wizarding Rad IO network, to temporarily record a pilot episode for us." Ethan's excitement was palpable as he discussed the TV show. He went on to detail their plans. "Next, we will place a large number of advertisements in mainstream newspapers such as The Quibbler, The Daily Prophet, and Wizarding Weekly to promote it. Simultaneously, we'll display numerous TVs in shop windows in bustling areas like Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade Village, conducting trial broadcasts for nearby wizard residents to increase awareness and interest in our TV station." As he spoke, Ethan added, "We originally planned to implement this series of publicity plans after the start of school, but if you need it, we can also advance it to this month. You know, these new things always attract a lot of attention, and their appearance will definitely distract people from the incident of Harry's attack. What do you think, Minister?" This was a strategic move. In reality, Ethan had intended to launch the publicity plan this month. By suggesting it as a new idea, he aimed to gain favor with Fudge. Fudge, clearly persuaded by Ethan's argument, agreed to his request without hesitation. "Okay, Ethan," Fudge spoke slowly, a hint of relief in his tone. "I agree with your proposal. I will arrange for the establishment of relevant departments as soon as possible. How about putting them under the name of the sports department? This aligns with the functions and also makes it convenient for Miss Gianna to manage this new department." "Of course, Mr. Minister, you have the final say," Ethan replied accommodatingly. Fudge's readiness stemmed from his eagerness to mitigate the impact of the Dementor incident, which weighed heavily on him. He needed a way to divert public attention and alleviate his own stress. Additionally, he recognized the powerful influence of The Quibbler, which had gained popularity with its exclusive reports and discoveries. Fudge feared that any negative coverage could embarrass him significantly. He also knew that his strained relationship with Dumbledore could worsen if the Quibbler stirred controversy, a scenario he wanted to avoid. Following Minister Fudge's directive, the Ministry of Magic acted swiftly. Led by Ludo Bagman, a new office was established, the Office of Radio and Television Management. This marked the wizarding world's formal entry into the management of the emerging television industry. However, this was an unprecedented venture, and the wizarding world lacked existing models to follow. It was anticipated that managing the only TV stations would be a challenging task for the foreseeable future. The department that may need to manage the Ethan family is primarily staffed by newcomers who have recently joined the Ministry of Magic. Despite their lack of experience within the ministry, these individuals are characterized by their enthusiasm, diligence, and openness to new ideas. A key factor uniting them is their membership in the Erudite Society during their Hogwarts years. The team is led by the department chief, Lipkarasu, who is the only member with prior experience in the ministry, having spent 4 years in the Funny Products Patent Office. Her comprehensive understanding of the ministry's operations and regulations makes her an ideal leader for this group of novices. At 22 years old, Lipkarasu's age closely aligns with that of her team, facilitating a seamless working relationship without the barriers of a generational gap. Notably, Lipkarasu was a close friend of Tonks during their time at Hogwarts. The head of this new department reports directly to Ludo Bagman, the director of the Department of Magical Sports and Games, who is a staunch ally of Jaina. This alignment from the department's staff to its leadership and up to its executive level imbues the department with a strong sense of unity and purpose, reflective of Jaina's influence. With such backing at the official level, the department has thrived, smoothly navigating the process of obtaining the necessary approvals and permissions for their operations. Asks, including advertising placement, prototype production, and program recording, are executed with precision and efficiency. This department's journey, under the guidance of Tulip Karasu and with the support of influential figures like Ludo Bagman, exemplifies a successful integration of youthful vigor and strategic alliances within the Ministry of Magic. Their collective efforts have set a solid foundation for the department's future endeavors, promising a bright trajectory ahead. Chapter 487, Fleur Delacour's Arrival. A week following Harry's trial, Fleur Delacour journeyed from Gaul to her ancestral home, becoming a pivotal figure in Ethan's television station project. Her arrival was impeccably timed, coinciding with the completion of the station's foundational construction. However, Fleur was not alone. She was accompanied by her sister Gabrielle and their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Delacour. The considerable size of the visiting group was not due to Fleur's need for familial escort or the Delacours' eagerness to meet their future son-in-law. Instead, their collective visit aimed to assist Fleur and Gabrielle with their relocation. Fleur had previously agreed with Ethan to move to the Kingdom of Yin for work after her graduation. Gabrielle, seizing the opportunity, convinced her parents to let her transfer from Beauxbaton to Hogwarts, expressing her desire to be closer to her sister, and, albeit unspoken, to Ethan. Fleur, aware of Gabrielle's true motives, harbored her own. Having observed Ethan's popularity among girls during the Triwizard Tournament, Fleur, despite accepting her latecomer status, was not content. Knowing her unfamiliarity with the Kingdom of Yin and her distant relationship with Ethan's circle, she sought allies, finding no one more suitable than her sister. To facilitate Gabrielle's school transfer, Fleur invested considerable effort. Upon Gabrielle's request, Fleur immediately supported her and began persuading their parents. Understanding that words alone wouldn't suffice, Fleur reached out to Ethan for assistance. Ethan, without hesitation, utilized his connections at Hogwarts to secure a valuable transfer spot for Gabrielle, and even contacted Madame Maxime to leverage Beauxbaton's connections. This decisive action convinced the Delacours to relent, prioritizing Gabrielle's future despite their preference for Beauxbaton's. "Have you really decided on Hogwarts?" Mr. Delacour asked Gabrielle, his tone laced with reluctance. "Beauxbaton's is also an excellent school." "Dad, I've made up my mind," Gabrielle responded firmly. "I want to explore more magical knowledge at Hogwarts, and Ethan is there too. The Delacours exchanged looks, their expressions a mix of helplessness and affection. What ultimately convinced them was the Bosun Society, introduced by Fleur. Through her descriptions, they learned about the arcane magic system's power and significance, as taught by the Erudite Society. Witnessing the magic demonstrated by Fleur, they, like many in the Erudite Society, believed in the arcane system's potential to revolutionize the magical world. Recognizing the opportunity for Gabrielle to join and learn from the forefront of magical innovation, the Delacours personally escorted their daughters to the kingdom of Yin, ready to embrace the new dawn. As the morning sun fully illuminated the village of Hogsmeade, Ethan had already arrived at the door of the Three Broomsticks pub through teleportation magic. He pushed open the ancient wooden door, which creaked softly as he entered the bar, a place that seemed to have been plucked straight from the Middle Ages. Inside, early rising guests were already present, engaging in quiet conversations or savoring their drinks alone, basking in the tranquility of the morning. Ethan made his way to the bar and casually ordered a glass of butterbeer and a sandwich for breakfast. As he enjoyed his meal, he awaited the arrival of Fleur's family, who, according to Fleur, were due to arrive in Hogsmeade that morning. The Three Broomsticks, being the most popular bar in Hogsmeade, housed a fireplace that served as a crucial transportation node in the village, frequently used for travel via the Floo network. The Delacour family was expected to arrive through this method. Just as Ethan was finishing his sandwich and considering another glass of butterbeer, the flames in the fireplace turned green once more, a sight he had witnessed numerous times throughout the morning. However, this time, a familiar figure emerged from the flames. It was Fleur, her silver hair shimmering brilliantly in the firelight. Following her, two more figures appeared, one tall and one short, the Delacour couple and their daughter Gabrielle, all carrying luggage and surveying the bar. Upon seeing them, Ethan greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome to the kingdom of Yin. Fleur, Gabrielle, Mr. and Mrs. Delacour, it's wonderful to see you again." "Thank you so much for coming to pick us up," Mr. Delacour responded with a smile. "We really appreciate your help with Fleur and Gabrielle." "It's no trouble at all. They're my friends," Ethan replied, gesturing dismissively as if to downplay his kindness. However, the Delacour sisters could hardly contain their excitement. "Ethan, we finally meet again," Fleur exclaimed, her eyes glistening with tears. She was the first to rush into Ethan's arms for a tight hug, through which Ethan could feel her genuine joy. Given the presence of her parents, Fleur's embrace was brief. Gabrielle then hugged Ethan, expressing her feelings. "Brother Ethan, we've missed you so much." Ethan gently patted her back and set her down. "I've missed you too, so what are your plans now? I'm ready to help with whatever you need." "The most pressing matter is finding a place for Fleur and Gabrielle to live. Do you have any recommendations?" Mr. Delacour inquired. "Absolutely. The village of St. Catchpole in Devon is an excellent choice," Ethan suggested enthusiastically. "It boasts picturesque countryside, fresh air, a beautiful environment, and a community of wizards. Most importantly, I'll be your neighbor." Upon hearing this, Fleur and Gabrielle cheered. "Great! We're going to live in the village of St. Catchpole." Their excitement wasn't about the countryside, the fresh air, or the beautiful environment. Living near Ethan was all that mattered to them. Seeing their daughter's enthusiasm, the Delacours exchanged a glance and agreed. "Since you all like it there, let's go to the village of St. Catchpole," Mrs. Delacour said with a smile. "I hope it becomes your new home." Ethan, ever decisive, wasted no time. After leaving the Three Broomsticks, he waved his hand, casting teleportation magic, and instantly transported the Delacour family to the village of St. Catchpole. As they arrived in the idyllic village, Fleur leaned closer to Ethan and whispered, "I've always wanted to live in your home as freely as Cirilla, but you know my parents might not find that appropriate." Ethan smiled softly, understanding the delicate balance of desires and propriety. At that moment, the Delacours approached, their gazes sweeping across the village, evaluating its living conditions and environment. "The scenery here is truly beautiful and very suitable for living," Mr. Delacour commented. "We're considering purchasing a Muggle house to renovate, or perhaps commissioning wizards to construct a brand new residence." Hearing this, Ethan felt a spark of inspiration. He cleared his throat and addressed the Delacours. Actually, there's no need for such complications. If you decide, I can directly construct a suitable house for you right here. It would only take a few hours, and you wouldn't even have to worry about the cost of materials. In front of his future in-laws, Ethan knew he had to make a good impression. The Delacours exchanged surprised glances upon hearing Ethan's bold proposal. The concept of building a house so swiftly was beyond their expectations. In most people's minds, constructing a home is a massive and complex undertaking. Even for wizards, it simplifies the process only slightly, still requiring professional designers, a team proficient in the necessary spells, and ample material preparation. The idea that even the most powerful wizard could complete such a task alone and in a short time seemed far-fetched. However, Fleur and Gabrielle had unwavering faith in Ethan, almost to the point of being blind to any limitations. They convinced their parents to stay and witness what they believed would be a remarkable display of Ethan's magical prowess. "Dad, Mom, just trust Ethan," Gabrielle pleaded, taking her mother's hand. "He will surely build us the most beautiful house." Fleur supported her sister's claim, adding, "Gabrielle is right. This will allow you to witness Ethan's extraordinary magic." Yielding to the persuasive efforts of Fleur and Gabrielle, the Delacours agreed to set aside their skepticism and stay to watch Ethan's magic show. Chapter 488, The Delacours' New Home. The land the Delacours chose for their new home was adjacent to Ethan's enchanted forest. Standing in the middle of the field, Ethan took a deep breath and tightened his grip on his wand. With a flick, a subtle wave of energy filled the air. The Delacours watched intently, not wanting to miss a single detail. Ethan whispered a spell, and the powerful levitation curse was released. The soil on the ground seemed to defy gravity, rising into the air and converging into massive clumps. What initially appeared to be a large pit, 3 to 4 meters deep and spanning hundreds of square meters, was actually the foundation of a house, including the basement space. Ethan's precise control and magical power to manipulate such a large amount of soil simultaneously amazed the Delacours. Yet, this was merely the beginning. The soil was not just for excavating the foundation, it played a more crucial role. "Fleur, could you add some water for me?" Ethan asked, turning his gaze to the half-Vila lady standing aside. Fleur nodded gracefully, pointed her wand forward, and chanted a spell in a clear voice. "Clear water like a spring." Instantly, a stream of crystal-clear spring water gushed from the tip of her wand. Before the water could reach the ground, it slowly seeped into the soil and the air under the influence of the floating curse, without wasting a single drop. Ethan began to wave his wand rhythmically, as if stirring a cauldron. A steady stream of soil and water mixed together under his precise control, gradually merging into a large viscous mud soup that floated in the air, rolling and dancing. With the addition of clear water, the volume of this mud soup increased, forming a spectacular mud river meandering in the sky. Yet, Ethan's levitation curse held firm, preventing any splashes, with only a few drops of muddy water dripping slowly at the edges. The Delacours watched in stunned silence, their eyes wide with disbelief. The levitation spell was so powerful that it could control hundreds of tons of muddy water with such precision that there were almost no omissions. Unbeknownst to them, Ethan had employed a trick, using the 7th level spell, Control Gravity, to minimize the gravity in the building area. This alone was a testament to Ethan's abilities. However, Ethan's work was far from over. He waved his wand again, and the muddy water in the air began to slowly pour into the large pit in the foundation, following the direction of his wand's swing. But Ethan didn't intend to simply fill the pit with muddy water. After laying down a layer about 30 centimeters thick, the muddy water seemed to be restricted in some way, adhering only to the walls of the pit and not flowing into the center. Gradually, several pillars made of mud and water took shape, and the outline of the walls became clearer. The Delacour family began to understand Ethan's intention. He was using the floating mud and water to sculpt a complete house. From the basement floor, walls and columns to the beams, Ethan's wand guided the construction until even the attic was completed. Under the amazed gaze of the Delacours, Ethan used mud and water to craft the shape of an exquisite small villa. It's really an amazing levitation spell, Mr. Delacour admired, but then he frowned slightly. But can a villa made of mud and water really last? Once it loses your magical support, will it collapse immediately? Hearing her father's concern, Fleur smiled softly and said, "Dad, don't worry. If Ethan did this, there must be a reason for it." Although she didn't understand the specifics at that moment, Fleur had faith in Ethan's methods and the magic that brought their new home to life. Ethan nodded slightly, expressing his gratitude for Fleur's trust. He was aware that mud and water alone would not suffice for his requirements to build strength, even after transformation. Turning to the magical forest beside him, he called out, "Girls, I need your help." With the rustling of leaves, several tree spirits emerged from the woods. Their figures were graceful, and their faces beautiful, embodying the essence of forest fairies. It was their first time acting as earthwood dogs, and their faces were alight with curiosity and excitement. The Delacours were captivated by the beauty of these tree spirits. "Wow, I've encountered this magical creature again," Mr. Delacour sighed in admiration, almost whistling. "They are just like the villa in Gaul." However, Mrs. Delacour's expression soured. Ethan seemed to have a particularly good rapport with these magical creatures, which was troubling, especially since her daughter was interested in Ethan. As a mixed-blood villa, she understood the nature of men all too well. The allure of the Dryad's beauty was an irresistible temptation for any man, and even she found herself drawn to it. So, what about Ethan? Could he resist this temptation? However, in this situation, she found it difficult to voice her concerns. Soon, she realized that these tree spirits were not just beautiful. "Please use your wood-shaping technique to help me shape some wooden sticks," Ethan explained his needs to the tree spirits. They responded eagerly, activating their natural abilities. The power of nature surged, and the trees in the forest grew rapidly under its influence. The Dryads carefully selected thick branches, applying the wood-shaping technique. The hard branches became malleable in the Dryad's hands. After stretching, straightening, and polishing, smooth and straight wooden sticks, about 1 to 2 centimeters in radius and 8 to 9 meters in length, materialized before everyone. Ethan nodded with satisfaction, waved his wand, and the wooden sticks levitated, inserting themselves into the muddy water. Through the translucent mud, everyone could see the wooden sticks crisscrossed, forming a stable, three-dimensional grid within, yet none protruded from the surface. Ethan then stretched out his other hand and began to cast the druid spell, Diamond Wood. Under the force of nature, the wooden sticks transformed, becoming as hard as steel and losing their flammability, essentially turning into steel bars. Last step. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes alight with excitement. "Turn mud into stone," he shouted softly, and a surge of magical power enveloped the entire structure. Under this magical influence, the muddy water underwent a dramatic transformation. It solidified and hardened rapidly, losing its original softness and fluidity. In moments, the mud and water structure was replaced by a real villa made of hard stone, albeit a rough version. The stones were tightly combined to form solid walls, columns, and beams, standing firmly on the ground without the need for levitation spell or control of gravity. The diamond wood, previously inserted into the mud, integrated perfectly with the stone, serving as internal support akin to a skeleton. Ethan proudly stated, "With the combination of the two spells, turn mud into stone, and adamantium wood, this house is almost as strong as the highest strength Muggle-reinforced concrete building. This completes the framework of the villa. The next step is to further enhance the interior and exterior decoration. For the decoration process, the spells turn mud into stone, and diamond wood remained indispensable. Ethan skillfully manipulated mud and water to form the general shapes of various stones, then cast turn mud into stone to solidify them instantly. On this sturdy stone foundation, he employed the stone-shaping technique to meticulously carve it. Soon, a series of exquisite ceramic tiles and stone products were crafted by his hands. Ethan was equally adept at working with wood and metal. He used the wood-shaping technique to effortlessly modify the shape of the wood to suit his design needs. Following that, he applied the diamond wood spell to alter the wood's properties, endowing it with the strength and flexibility of metal. Consequently, solid doors, exquisite window frames, and other wooden and metal components were magically created one after another. Ethan's creativity seemed boundless. He even transformed ordinary bamboo into strong and durable water pipes using the sculpture wood technique and diamond wood. During the process, Ethan also took a pile of sand and cast the sand transformation spell on it. The sand gradually melted and solidified under his spell, eventually turning into pieces of crystal-clear glass. These glass products would ensure ample lighting for the entire house. Once all the materials were prepared, Ethan summoned his artificial maids, Oriana and Gwen. The appearance of the two beautiful artificial maids once again worried the Delacours. "Oriana, Gwen, you're here." Ethan greeted them with a smile. "The specific decoration work is now up to you." "Your will, master." The two maids curtsied to Ethan. Under Ethan's direction, they began to tackle various intricate decoration tasks, installing pipes, laying tiles, flooring, painting walls, and more. As constructs, they were perfectly suited for these repetitive and meticulous tasks. Oriana was in charge of laying various floors and tiles. With her high computational abilities, she worked like the most advanced construction robot, precise and efficient. She installed every pipe flawlessly and laid every tile smoothly and beautifully. Gwen took responsibility for installing doors, windows, pipes, and other components, her movements equally adept and swift. Thanks to their combined efforts, the entire building was swiftly completed. The interior and exterior of the house were decorated in an orderly fashion, transforming it from a rough structure into a genuine villa. Chapter 489. After completing the construction of the main body of the building, Ethan was not in a hurry to rest. Although the subsequent tasks were more dispersed, they were equally important. He stood in the spacious hallway, scanning each room one by one before taking out his wand. Starting with the living room, Ethan began to cast the space extension spell. As the spell was cast, the room's space seemed to be stretched by invisible hands, instantly becoming much wider. This spell was essential for every room, maximizing the use of limited space. Next, he applied the constant temperature technique. With this magic, the room's temperature gradually became constant and comfortable, maintaining a pleasant atmosphere regardless of the season. Safety was also a major concern for Ethan. He meticulously applied various anti-theft spells to each door and window, ensuring that neither Alijo Cave opening nor knocking technique could easily breach them. The fireplace, a core element of the house, not only provided warmth in winter, but also served as a crucial connection to the flue network. Ethan stood before the fireplace, casting a spell to link it closely with the flue network. All that remained was to submit an application to the Ministry of Magic, enabling quick access for distant guests or important letters through the flue network. Ethan also checked the arcane eyes in the porch room. These magical devices, shining since the Tri-Wizard tournament, now functioned as surveillance cameras. They were capable of monitoring all movements inside and outside the house, transmitting images to a terminal in real time, such as a magic TV. This allowed the homeowner to keep track of the house's situation at any time, ensuring safety and security. To facilitate the sisters moving in with their belongings, Ethan began crafting various large pieces of furniture. He assigned these tasks to the tree spirits, designing the furniture's appearance and displaying it through illusion magic. The tree spirits planted sapling seeds and used nature's power to catalyze their growth. Skillfully, they guided the trees to grow into the shapes of tables, chairs, and cabinets as per Ethan's designs. They then used the wood shaping technique and transfiguration to further refine the furniture. For metal furniture, the initial shape was crafted from wood, then hardened with the diamond wood spell. Ethan personally handled the stone furniture, using the transform mud to stone spell to shape the mud into furniture forms, followed by the stone shaping technique for fine carving. Soon, the villa was filled with various pieces of furniture, instantly imbued with the atmosphere of a lived-in home. However, Ethan was not yet satisfied. He knew that a perfect home required not just a solid structure but also a vibrant garden for embellishment. Thus, he turned his attention to the open space next to the villa, already envisioning a garden. He asked the Delacour sisters, "What kind of plants do you like?" "Iris," Fleur said. "I like the purple one best." The iris, a symbol of the Gallic royal family, resonated with Fleur's heritage, symbolizing fleur de la cour, court flower. Gabrielle chose white jasmine. Ethan nodded and summoned a group of flower nymphs. Like the tree spirits, their bodies contained powerful natural forces. Under Ethan's direction, they began to work in the garden, sowing seeds, catalyzing growth, and casting plant growth spells. Thanks to their efforts, a variety of beautiful flowers rapidly bloomed, transforming the garden into a picturesque scene. In the yard, the branches and leaves thrived, and the flowers bloomed, adorning the garden beautifully. Ethan employed the stone-shaping technique to sculpt various figures within the garden. He even constructed a small fountain at its center, where the water's gentle tinkling added a refreshing coolness to the summer air. The sculptures, depicting both human and animal figures, were animated by Ethan's magic. With just a command, these stone sculptures would come alive, serving as guardians for the villa and its garden. Ethan also introduced a special garden shrub, which, under Gwen's expert hands, was pruned into various animal shapes. Ethan then cast an activation spell on them, allowing these shrub animals to join the ranks of the garden's guardians. Although creating this activation spell was simpler than making a construct, the directly activated creations possessed limited intelligence and potential. They relied solely on their material and size for combat, making their effectiveness relatively average. In addition to the normal plants, Ethan planted some lacy seeds, a byproduct of his research into creating natural spirits. When mature, these seeds would grow into lacy plants. These plant elves possessed certain intelligence and magical abilities, but their predominantly plant-like appearance did not appeal to Ethan's aesthetic preferences, leading him to abandon them. However, the lacy plants had their uses. For instance, the pea lacies Ethan was currently planting could, after growth acceleration, sprout a large head from the pod, sometimes even 2 or 3 heads at once. Their black round eyes appeared somewhat comical. Yet the pea lacy's abilities were remarkable. When their pod heads' cheeks swelled, they could shoot out peas with a hardness comparable to diamond wood, at a firing rate not much slower than bullets, making their power akin to that of a standard rifle. The garden also housed various other forms of lacy plants. The Venus flytrap lacy, with its huge sharp-toothed maw, could expand and contract at will, capable of swallowing a cow whole. The watermelon lacy, besides having a watermelon for a head, possessed thick, spring-shaped vines that could rapidly grow watermelons and launch them like a trebuchet. The watermelons' skin was as hard as diamond wood, and upon impact, they would explode with force comparable to a grenade. Other varieties included the cat-ale lace, cactus lace, and biting cabbage lace, forming a small army within the garden. At the garden's outermost perimeter, Ethan began constructing a barrier to protect the villa, reminiscent of the maze he had built for the Triwizard tournament. With the assistance of tree spirits, Ethan erected a 3-meter-high hedge, but unlike the maze, this barrier was specially reinforced with adamantium wood, making it nearly indestructible compared to the Triwizard tournament's maze. This served as the villa's fence. The villa's gate was a massive fence gate crafted from wood plasticity and diamond wood. On either side of the gate post, 2 activated gargoyles stood guard, ready to spring to life and reveal their ferocious fangs should anyone attempt to intrude. By dusk, Ethan had completed the construction of the entire villa. Witnessing Ethan build such a villa with a garden in just half a day left the Delacours thoroughly impressed. To accommodate the 2 sisters from Gaul, Ethan designed Reborn. The villa was designed in the French classical Baroque style, its tall exterior walls painted in soft off-white tones, adorned with intricate stone carvings of vines, flowers, and mythical figures. This complexity, combined with the curved window lattice and iron-decorated doors and windows, exuded a sense of opulent beauty. The sloped roof, covered with dark tiles, provided a striking contrast to the light-colored walls. Upon entering the villa, one was greeted by an interior that radiated luxury. Tall, floor-to-ceiling windows featured an exquisite French window lattice design, allowing sunlight to flood the interior. The spacious and bright living room boasted a high ceiling adorned with colorful murals and was illuminated by a magnificent crystal chandelier. The walls were covered with exquisite wallpaper showcasing various patterns, and the retro Baroque furniture, with its fine carvings and smooth lines, perfectly complemented the overall decorative style. The villa's garden was equally breathtaking. Carefully trimmed greenery and blooming flowers created a harmonious display, with purple iris, white lilies, bright yellow daisies, and fiery red roses adding splashes of color. It resembled a vivid oil painting. At the garden's heart stood an exquisite fountain where water gently flowed from the sculpture's mouth, causing ripples and emitting a melodious sound as it hit the pool's surface. The setting sun cast rays through the water mist, creating stunning rainbows. Fleur and Gabrielle wandered around the villa happily, like two butterflies flitting among the flowers, their love for every part of it insatiable. Mr. and Mrs. Decor followed, their faces alight with satisfaction, evidently pleased with their new home. They held Ethan's hand, expressing their heartfelt gratitude. In a quiet moment, Fleur leaned close to Ethan's ear and whispered, "Hey, Ethan, do you think I am being kept by you?" As night descended, Gwen and Oriana returned to the villa, at this time bearing a lavish dinner to celebrate the completion of the Decor family's new home. The meal commenced with attractively plated French escargots, the fresh and tender snails paired with a special garlic butter sauce, making each bite a delight. This was followed by a classic French foie gras dish, accompanied by perfectly toasted slices of bread. The main course featured a selection of meticulously prepared meat dishes, pan-fried steak with a crispy exterior and tender interior, served with a special black pepper sauce, grilled lamb chops with crispy skin, accompanied by fresh rosemary and a special garlic sauce, and a French gratin chicken, tender and juicy, paired with a special creamy mushroom sauce and golden roasted potato cubes, all of which were sure to stimulate the appetite. The meal concluded with various desserts, including colorful French macarons and sweet, delicious caramel pudding. The beverages for the evening were brandy and red wine, sourced from the Three Broomsticks bar, lending the banquet a romantic and cozy atmosphere. Ethan invited Hermione and Jiangchu from the tower, along with Tonks, who was specially called. Everyone gathered around the dining table, sharing laughs and enjoying a wonderful night together, creating a picture of contentment and joy. Chapter 490. The next day, Ethan went to the Ministry of Magic to complete the registration for the villa. Ideally, this procedure should have been completed before the construction began. Ethan had essentially boarded the bus before buying a ticket. However, thanks to Gianna's foresight in preparing the necessary documentation for the villa, he greeted the officials, and the registration process proceeded without a hitch. Following that, Ethan visited the Flu Network Management Bureau within the Department of Magical Transportation to request the connection of the villa's fireplace to the Flu Network. Although the Department of Magical Transportation was not under Gianna's influence, the current harmonious period between the two factions meant that the staff were not inclined to inconvenience Ethan, a prominent figure in Gianna's circle. Consequently, the villa was swiftly connected to the Flu Network. Meanwhile, the Delacours returned to Hogsmeade to purchase daily necessities for Fleur and Gabrielle. They navigated the bustling streets, visiting major stores to select bedding, curtains, kitchenware, and other household essentials. These tasks, though numerous, were straightforward. Within just a few days, the villa was transformed into a cozy and inviting home. With the sisters well settled, the Delacours could return to Gaul with peace of mind. The summer heat showed no signs of abating. Even in mid-August, the sun continued to scorch the earth relentlessly. The prolonged sunny weather made England feel like it was trapped in a vast steamer, with the ground simmering like a freshly boiled potion. Amidst this sweltering heat, at number 12 Grimmauld Place, the ancestral home of the Black family, and now the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix, Harry Potter's mood was as irritable as the weather. He sat at a cluttered dining table, a copy of the Daily Prophet open in front of him, his brow furrowed in frustration. His attention was drawn to a photograph on the front page of the Daily Prophet. It featured Fleur Delacour, whom he remembered from the Triwizard Tournament. Dressed elegantly, she looked every bit the star, her slender fingers pointing at a television, her lips slightly parted, as she enthusiastically encouraged readers to visit Hogsmeade or Diagon Alley over the weekend to experience the Arcane Magic TV pilot. The advertisement, with its bold text and striking images, was impossible to overlook. All wizards who participate can enter a lottery. The top 10 winners will receive a newly developed Magic TV worth 200 gold galleons for free. The next 100 winners will get a TV purchase discount voucher worth 50 gold galleons. Harry exclaimed, momentarily setting aside his frustrations. He pushed the newspaper towards Sirius, who was sitting opposite him. Can you believe it? Muggle televisions have actually been introduced into the wizarding world. Sirius frowned, his gaze fixed on the front page of the Daily Prophet with a somber expression. Look at this front page, completely dominated by this TV advertisement. Fudge must be behind this, he said indignantly. It's a clear manipulation of the media. A minor incident like Harry casting a spell during the holidays was escalated to a court trial and reported as a front-page headline by the Daily Prophet. Yet, an unprovoked Dementor attack on an innocent wizard is relegated to a corner by both mainstream media outlets, the Daily Prophet and the Quibbler, without so much as a photograph. With that, Sirius slammed his hand on the table in frustration. The Daily Prophet even downplayed it as an accident, not mentioning the Dementors at all. In a fit of anger, Sirius threw the newspaper onto the table and stood up abruptly. Ethan left his seat and walked straight to his mother's room. The door slammed shut behind him, followed by the sound of an argument between him and his mother's portrait. He often used these moments to vent his frustrations. The remaining people at the dinner table exchanged worried glances. They were all aware of Sirius's dissatisfaction with the Daily Prophet and Fudge, but today his agitation seemed particularly pronounced. Just then, Ginny entered the room, holding 5 envelopes in her hand, breaking the tense silence. The book list for next semester is here, so early, she announced, tossing one of the envelopes towards Harry. Harry, who had been lost in thought about Sirius's departure, was jolted back to reality by Ginny's action. He opened his envelope to find 2 pieces of parchment inside. One was a notice reminding him that school would start on September 1st, and the other was a list of books he needed to buy for the next school year. The densely packed titles on the list made Harry's head spin. Looks like we'll need to find time to visit Diagon Alley, Harry remarked. In addition to buying new books, I also need a new crucible. Ron, what do you think? Harry turned to Ron, only to find him frozen in place, his mouth slightly open and his eyes staring blankly at the letter from Hogwarts in his hand. Ron, what's wrong with you? Harry asked, puzzled. He walked around to Ron's side and peered at the parchment. His reaction mirrored Ron's, both of them stunned. Harry, did you see this? Hermione's voice suddenly cut through the silence. Her face was flushed with excitement as she clutched her own envelope. I'm also a prefect, Harry. I'm a prefect. Despite her achievements as the second-in-command of the Erudite Society and the top warrior in the Tri-Wizard tournament, the position of prefect still thrilled her. It signified the professor's recognition of her efforts at Hogwarts. No, Hermione, Harry replied, his voice tinged with dryness. He shared Hermione's excitement, but had to correct her misunderstanding. It's Ron, not me. Ron? Hermione looked up in surprise, her gaze landing on the red and gold badge in Ron's hand. She was taken aback. Ron, a prefect? Suddenly, her own position seemed less significant. Ron turned around, eyebrows raised, wearing a triumphant expression. Hermione frowned, clearly unimpressed. At that moment, Mrs. Molly Weasley rushed over, enveloping Ron in a tight hug and showering him with kisses. Oh, Ron, you're amazing! A prefect! Every one of our family has been a prefect. I'm going to buy you a set of red and gold pajamas to match your badge. Apparently, my mother doesn't consider us her children, George and Fred remarked, exchanging resigned looks. Mom, please. Control yourself, Ron murmured, his voice trembling slightly under the weight of his mother's enthusiasm. He struggled to free himself from her grasp, but Mrs. Weasley's strength was unyielding. Ethan's heart felt heavy with an indescribable emotion, prompting him to leave the scene. He grabbed his envelope and walked towards his room. Hermione noticed the subtle shift in Ethan's mood and followed him, her voice laced with concern. Are you okay, Ethan? That's great, Hermione, Ethan replied, forcing enthusiasm into his voice, though it sounded unnatural. He avoided making eye contact with her. "Thank you," Hermione said softly, then added with a hint of hesitation, "Ethan, are you sure you're all right?" "Actually, I came to say goodbye to you. I'm going back to Levine. We had a meeting scheduled. After that, there will be a formal welcome party for Fleur." In fact, this so-called welcome party is far more complex than it seems. It is actually the initiation ceremony of the Genius Club. Fleur and her sister Gabrielle, along with Ginny and Astoria, will officially join the club during this ceremony. They will gain access to permanent elixirs, have the freedom to enter and exit the tower at will, and use various facilities. However, these details are not known to outsiders. "What? You've only been here for a day. Are you leaving now?" Harry was a bit stunned, then regained his composure and nodded, his tone still overly enthusiastic. "Oh, okay, Hermione. Please give Ethan my regards. Take care." Hermione hesitated before leaving. She seemed to have something she wanted to say to Harry, but ultimately, she didn't. Express it. "Harry, you are actually better than Ron, and more suitable to be a prefect." Ginny was waiting for Hermione at the door, and the two left number 12 Grimmauld Place together. Harry walked slowly back to his bed, flopped down on it, and stared blankly at the foot of the wardrobe. Update 30. Additional update 90. Please support me with custom orders, flowers, monthly votes, comments, and rewards. If you have votes, please cast them for me as the author. This is really important to me. Chapter 491. Ethan, in the tower, also received a letter from Hogwarts. Tonks, holding Ethan's prefect badge, congratulated him with joy and admiration. "Ethan, did you see this? This is your prefect badge. That's great!" She reminisced about her days at Hogwarts, dreaming of one day earning such a badge herself. Although her grades were decent, her penchant for pranks always cost her the honor. At that moment, Jaina's voice echoed from the doorway. "Okay, Tonks, that's enough celebration for now. Ethan, come to the conference room quickly. Everyone is already here and waiting for you." Ethan nodded and made his way towards the stairs. As his power grew, Ethan had used the space extension spell to enlarge a room on the second floor of the tower, transforming it into a splendid conference room. Ethan and Tonks followed Jaina there, where Onyxia, Fleur, other members of the Genius Club, and several guests were already gathered. The meeting's main agenda was to discuss Arcana and the Magic TV project. Once the meeting commenced, Jaina surveyed the room and solemnly announced, "After careful consideration, we have decided to appoint Miss Penny Harwood as the deputy director of the TV station, responsible for its management." All eyes turned to Penny. This young witch, with her striking beauty, intelligent blue eyes, and long golden hair, exuded a gentle and endearing personality. Unlike Tonks, Penny hailed from Hufflepuff House and was equally talented in magic, albeit with a softer demeanor. Deputy Director? This position seems too significant, Penny said, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. Am I really qualified for this? Her journey to the TV station began with curiosity and a desire for new experiences, starting as an ordinary employee without anticipating such a rapid ascent to deputy director, responsible for the station's management. Tonks, sensing her friend's apprehension, offered her warm hand for support, silently encouraging her. Penny's involvement in the TV station was on Tonks's recommendation, understanding the strategic importance Ethan placed on this venture. For Ethan, selecting a trustworthy candidate for this role was crucial, given the station's potential impact on public opinion. Xenophilius served as the station's director, leveraging his media experience to guide its direction while focusing on the Quibbler. Thus, the station required a dedicated director. Finding such a candidate proved challenging for both Ethan and Jaina. Although Jaina had a list of potential candidates, most were Ministry of Magic employees, complicating the recruitment process for a directorial position. Ethan faced a similar dilemma, despite having access to numerous talents within his circle. Everyone involved knew that they were essentially students at school. Joining a TV station after graduation in a few years wouldn't pose a problem, but addressing the immediate need was more challenging. Fleur was the only one suitable for work at the TV station. However, being from Gaul, it wasn't appropriate for her to hold a management position in the Yin Kingdom's TV station. Ethan was more inclined to train her as a gold medal host to leverage her personal charm fully. As for Onyxia, everyone she knew held a certain social status. Even if someone was willing to take on the role of station director, they weren't from her inner circle. Thus, the task of finding the TV station's head fell to Tonks. After careful consideration and consultation with her friends, they decided on their friend Petunia. Not only did Petunia possess an outstanding appearance and an elegant temperament, but she was also friendly, perfectly fitting the image of the TV station's head. More importantly, she had studied at Hogwarts with Tonks and Tulip, forming a deep bond. Now, with Tulip serving as the director of the Television Broadcasting Management Office, their friendship was an asset to the work. Despite everyone's belief in her suitability, Petunia was initially hesitant. Ethan gently reassured her, "Penny, don't feel too pressure. Ed, after all, we're the only TV station in the entire wizarding world. Both you and the audience are new to this. We'll explore and learn together. Plus, you're working with reliable partners, so management won't be complicated. This project will only grow and will gradually gain experience." Tulip added, "Exactly, Petunia. Be brave and believe in yourself. As the director of the Radio and Television Management Office, I'll fully support you. We're old friends. I wouldn't make things difficult for you." Encouraged by her friends, Petunia's tension and anxiety eased. She decided to take on the challenge. "Okay, since there are no objections," Ethan said, looking around the conference table with satisfaction before standing up to make a formal announcement. "Then it's settled. The position of Director of Arcane Magic TV will be held by Mr. Xenophilius Lovegood, the Editor-in-Chief of The Quibbler. Under his leadership, The Quibbler has gained significant reputation and influence in the wizarding world. With his guidance, our television station is poised for rapid growth." Ethan then announced the deputy directors. Miss Petunia Harwood and Miss Fleur Delacour will serve as deputy directors. Miss Harwood will oversee the daily management of the station, ensuring smooth operations, while Miss Delacour will manage the camera crew and also serve as the chief host. Her talent and charm will undoubtedly attract more viewers. Petunia and Fleur smiled upon hearing their names. Finally, Ethan raised his voice. "I will provide technical support for the TV station. I'll ensure our equipment is continuously upgraded, offering viewers a superior audio-visual experience. For equipment maintenance, you can contact Miss Oriana." He gestured towards the clockwork maid standing silently beside him, who then curtsied with dignity. Made to protect the devil, the guidance machinery products were indeed very suitable. As the position of the TV station was confirmed, the atmosphere of the meeting grew more enthusiastic. Tulip, from the TV station management department, happened to be present. Subsequently, the discussion shifted towards the regulations related to managing the TV station. Despite everyone being on the same team, which essentially meant overseeing themselves and playing both referee and athlete roles, it was agreed that to maintain public trust, formal measures had to be implemented. After the meeting, Xenophilius, Penny, and Tulip left the conference room one after the other. Ethan dove back into the laboratory to continue his research on magic. The remaining members of the Genius Club stayed behind, gathered around the conference table for a smaller, more focused meeting. Penello stood before the group, waving her wand. Under the spell of illusion magic, a financial statement materialized in the air. Using her wand as a pointer, she detailed each item on the report like a slideshow, outlining the income and expenditure situation. Penello highlighted the numbers on the report and concluded, "The magical creature's reserve has just been established, requiring additional investment. The Arcane Magic TV station is in its infancy, demanding significant expenditure. Coupled with our investments in various stores in Hogsmeade during the Triwizard Tournament and the construction of the Magic TV production line, Ethan also plans to establish a golem factory. With such ambitious steps forward, I'm concerned about potential financial operational issues." Gianna, flipping through the paper report, expressed her concerns with a frown. "Actually, I discussed this issue with Ethan some time ago. I suggested he use the Philosopher's Stone to generate a substantial amount of gold, hoping he would slow down the pace of development and proceed more cautiously after some of my investments began to yield returns. But clearly, he didn't align with my perspective, and I couldn't press him further." Gianna sighed, feeling somewhat helpless. She recognized that Ethan was a visionary and bold individual, but his decisions indeed placed considerable strain on the club's finances. Penny Haywood, like Tulip, is also a character from the game Hogwarts Mystery. Chapter 490. Upon seeing this, Penello said no more, poured a cup of black tea for everyone, and then returned to his seat. Gianna gently accepted the tea from Penello and took a sip. The warm liquid slowly slid down her dry throat. She frowned slightly and expressed her concerns. Originally, we planned to set the price of the Magic TV at 500 galleons, but Ethan insisted that the price should not be too high to ensure it could spread more widely among the public. So we ultimately lowered the price to 200 galleons. As a result, although TV penetration may increase significantly, our profits will also decrease significantly. That being said, we can't always rely on Ethan using the Philosopher's Stone to refine gold, Jaina continued. He has more important things to do. We have to figure this out ourselves. Despite Jaina Proudmoore's prominent position and great power in the Ministry of Magic, she, like other members of the Genius Club, often finds herself unconsciously yielding to Ethan, valuing his opinions and feelings highly. In their hearts, Ethan is the core and soul of the team. Therefore, even with concerns about launching so many projects at once, they cannot ask Ethan to postpone any of them. Tonks, though worried about the situation, admitted his lack of knowledge in financial management. Yet he firmly stood by Ethan's side. Our achievements today are all thanks to Ethan. We should support him unconditionally, no matter what. Sorella, more inclined to agree with Gianna and Penello's perspective, chose to remain silent at this moment. She felt Tonks was right. Without Ethan, the club wouldn't be where it is today. I think Master Ethan has made all the right decisions so far. Despite often quarreling with Ethan, in this instance, she firmly supported him, revealing her hidden affection. Luna, always carefree, rarely involved herself in the daily affairs of the Genius Club. As newcomers, Ginny and Fleur, though fond of Ethan, felt powerless in front of the group's senior members and had no say. However, Hermione had her own opinions. Immediately after returning to the tower from Black's old house, she rushed to attend this emergency meeting. From the start, she sat in a corner, engrossed in reading the thick reports, diligently digesting the data and information. After a while, she spoke up, partly to herself and partly suggesting, "In fact, I planned to attend a Muggle university after graduating from Hogwarts, so I taught myself some Muggle economics and management. Of course, I've only grasped a bit of theory and knowledge, but it's clear that there are some issues with our current management approach. Our management style is too crude and primitive. Everyone is responsible for a multitude of tasks, yet there's a lack of cohesive, overall management. We've invested in many projects with a broad scope and rapid development, but we lack unified goals and plans. Each project operates independently, without the necessary coordination," Hermione continued, shaking her head slightly with a hint of worry in her tone. "If this continues, I'm concerned we'll fall into chaos and crisis. We need to change our development approach and improve efficiency. We can learn from Muggles and establish a special department to act as the commander-in-chief, responsible for gathering intelligence from all aspects and conducting overall management. This way, our group can command, develop, and control more efficiently." She paused, pondering further. "Actually, if conditions permit, establishing a bank would be ideal. Banks can serve as one. The core hub of our various industries provides credit financing support to major industries through financial means. In this way, we don't need to directly invest a large amount of real money. We can promote the development of new industries by utilizing the bank's fund allocation function. At the same time, banks can increase their creditworthiness with the strong endorsement of our major industries, attract more savings deposits, and further expand our capital scale." At this point, Hermione sighed. "It's a pity that Gringotts is the only bank in the wizarding world." Hermione was so engrossed in her thoughts that she didn't notice the silence in the conference room until she finished speaking. When she looked up, she found everyone staring at her, waiting for her to continue. Feeling her cheeks warm up, she realized she might have gotten too carried away. "I'm really sorry. I may have said too much. I shouldn't have," she started, but was interrupted by Onyxia. "Hermione, You spoke very well. Your opinions are constructive. I'll leave this matter to you. How about you be the overall planner and formulate a specific plan? Hermione's cheeks flushed as she waved her hands. No, no, no. I just read a few books and haven't really studied economics. Moreover, many of these ideas were also proposed by Ethan. Hermione, you can't underestimate yourself, Tonks interrupted, gently smoothing Hermione's disheveled hair. You are knowledgeable, flexible, and well-versed in the Muggle world. You're always better than us in this aspect. Besides, with Ethan's guidance, no matter how good his idea is, you still need to supplement and improve it. I believe you can do well. That's settled then, Hermione. Jaina nodded, adding, It's up to you to make this plan. We'll have a meeting later to discuss the details. Hermione hesitated, then asked, Does this include banking matters? Of course, it includes banking matters. Jaina smiled and nodded. Although Gringotts is the only bank in the wizarding world now, it doesn't mean it will always be like this. Surrounded by the affirmations and praises of her companions, Hermione's eyes shone with excitement and determination. She felt happier than if she had won the Triwizard Tournament. This happiness stemmed not only from her companions' words of praise, but also from the realization that they were a genius club. Everyone here was a talent carefully selected by Ethan, blessed with attribute elixir, and capable of being called a genius. For Hermione, being recognized by these real geniuses was more gratifying than being praised by many more ordinary people. She was ready to use the rest of the summer vacation to search for information in Muggle libraries and work hard to formulate a practical and workable plan. Meanwhile, Zhangchu watched everyone's attention, captured by Hermione Granger's talent, feeling a hint of jealousy. She regretted her past neglect of the Muggle world. Reflecting on Ethan's decisions, including the restructuring against Pride and the TV station plan, she realized they were all inspired by the Muggle world. Now, with Hermione using the management experience of the Muggle world, Zhangchu understood she needed to start paying more attention to it as well. In the Muggle world, Zhangchu's gaze inadvertently shifted to Luna. She was curious about how this eccentric girl would react to Hermione's impassioned speech. Surprisingly, Luna leaned back in her chair, a thin line of drool escaping the corner of her mouth as she fell into a peaceful slumber. This unexpected scene sent Zhangchu into a fit of laughter. Luna truly was a girl who defied all expectations. Following the internal meeting of the Genius Club, a lavish banquet was held to warmly welcome Ginny, Astoria, and the Delacour sisters into the Genius Club family. At the banquet, Ethan, as the club's leader, had meticulously prepared valuable welcome gifts, including permanent elixirs and wands made of fairy silver. As they joyfully accepted these gifts, Ethan also imprinted the intellectual mark, a symbol of wisdom, onto the back of their hands. Time flew swiftly, and before they knew it, the first day of school was just around the corner. Unlike Hogwarts, Beauxbatons offered a 2-year preparatory course, which allowed the 9-year-old Gabrielle to enroll successfully. However, with her decision to transfer to Hogwarts, she was required to start from the first year. This meant she needed to acquire uniforms, textbooks, and various classroom supplies, including Sybils. Unfortunately, due to the recent launch of a television show, Fleur was exceedingly busy and unable to accompany Gabrielle for shopping. Coincidentally, Hermione also needed to purchase textbooks for the new term, and Ethan was interested in visiting Flourish and Blott's bookstore to check out the latest publications. Thus, Ethan decided that he and Hermione would take Gabrielle to Diagon Alley. This would not only help her gather the necessary supplies, but also allow her to immerse herself in the traditions experienced by new Hogwarts students. Zhangchu, adhering to a request, cosplayed alongside Ruandame, adding a touch of whimsy to their adventure. Chapter 493, A Sunny Day in Diagon Alley. On a sunny day, Ethan, Hermione, and others took Gabrielle to Diagon Alley. Ethan, who was short on funds, made his first stop at Gringotts to exchange his assets. Unlike most, he exchanged gold for galleons, humorously noting his lack of money made him resort to using actual gold. During the visit, Ethan took Gabrielle on an adventurous journey to withdraw money from Gringotts' underground vault, turning it into an exhilarating experience akin to riding an underground roller coaster. They whizzed past vaults and even spotted a fire dragon, with Gabrielle screaming in excitement throughout the ride. After securing the money, Ethan generously filled Gabrielle's purse with gold galleons, silver sickles, and copper nuts, affectionately declaring it her pocket money. Hermione, however, seemed slightly displeased by this gesture. Their next agenda was a shopping spree in Diagon Alley, where they visited various magical shops to gather all the essentials Gabrielle needed for school, including uniforms, textbooks, and experimental equipment. At the Shelf and Shirt store, Gabrielle used the money Ethan gave her to buy 3 silver silk scarves, one for herself, one for her sister, and one for Ethan, her most beloved brother-in-law, noticeably excluding Hermione, which left her quite miffed. In the Ela Owl shop, Ethan carefully selected a white snowy owl for Gabrielle. Its snow-like feathers and sharp eyes made it stand out, but it was its intelligence and perception that truly made it the perfect choice. Gabrielle instantly fell in love with the owl, and when asked to name it, she insisted that Ethan should choose. He whimsically suggested White-Faced Owl, a name that Gabrielle joyfully accepted. After a long day of visiting nearly every essential shop for young wizards, the group felt a bit weary. By chance, they stumbled upon Rosalie Tea Bag, a tea house with an inviting aroma and a display of exquisite tea snacks. They settled by a window, ordering black tea and refreshments. Gabrielle, eager to explore her new purchases, played with a moonscope from Weseek's magical supplies shop, questioning if it could replace traditional moon charts. Ethan reminded her that while gadgets are helpful, her own skills were paramount, subtly considering the idea of limiting her reliance on such tools. Instead of acting on this thought, he ordered her a large portion of vanilla ice cream to enjoy. As Gabrielle was distracted by a set of shiny gobstones, Ethan's gaze drifted to the newly opened Arcane Magic Home Appliances store across from the tea house. Noticing his interest, Hermione suggested they check it out. Agreeing, Ethan, Hermione, and Gabrielle stood up, ready to explore the new store, marking another adventure in their day at Diagon Alley. Ethan guided Gabrielle through the bustling crowd of Diagon Alley, making their way toward the Arcane Magic Home Appliances store. With Gabrielle securely in his arms and Hermione's hand firmly in his grasp, they navigated through the throng of excited wizards and witches. The air was thick with anticipation as people waved their lottery ticket numbers, eager to see what the newly opened store had to offer. The crowd was a diverse mix of ages and genders, all drawn to the unique allure of the store. The store itself stood out with its modern and stylish design, a stark contrast to the traditional establishments surrounding it. Its exterior was made entirely of glass curtain walls, making it resemble a vast showcase that offered a clear view of its interior from the outside. This innovative design was Ethan's brainchild, inspired by the futuristic concept of Apple stores. However, Ethan's vision for the store extended far beyond selling magic TVs. He harbored grander ambitions, including launching home-type constructs to replace house elves and even modifying Muggle computers. By combining them with magic, he aimed to create a revolutionary magic computer. Both the magic construct and the magic computer were groundbreaking concepts for the wizarding world, setting the Arcane Magic Appliances company apart. Peering through the glass, visitors could see shelves laden with various models of magic TVs. A simple stand in the store displayed a square black TV, which immediately caught the attention of the gathered wizards and witches. Suddenly, the TV screen lit up, replacing the dark scene with a bright white one. As the camera zoomed out, it revealed that the white expanse was actually a thick layer of clouds. The audience watched in awe as the camera ascended through the clouds, unveiling a majestic floating island nestled in a sea of clouds, resembling a fairyland. The camera continued to zoom in, bringing the details of the magnificent floating city into sharp focus. Towering towers, exquisite sculptures, wide squares, and bustling markets filled the scene, leaving the viewers dazzled and amazed. The camera finally settled on the highest tower, where a huge rune shone brightly. This eye-shaped rune, with 2 lightning-like arcs extending below, represented magic, arcane wisdom. It then transformed into a unique station logo, with Arcane Magic TV Station, displayed prominently beneath it. This was the brand logo short film Ethan had designed for Arcane Magic TV, captivating the wizards and witches present. "What kind of magic is this? You can actually build a city in the sky," exclaimed a young witch, her voice filled with wonder. "It's incredible. I've never seen such a spectacular sight," an older wizard remarked, his voice laden with awe. "Huh, what a fuss. Isn't this just like the live broadcast of the Triwizard Tournament?" A seemingly well-informed wizard commented disdainfully. "Arcane Magic TV? What is that?" another young wizard asked, his curiosity piqued. Those wizards who came from Muggle families watched the pureblood wizard's surprised expressions with a sense of superiority. They were familiar with televisions and TV stations, but the introduction of such technology to the magical world was indeed a novel initiative. They eagerly anticipated the upcoming programs. As the TV station icon slowly faded, a beautiful figure suddenly appeared on the screen, capturing everyone's attention. It was a young witch, her face radiating a captivating allure akin to a masterpiece. "Wow, it's Fleur Delacour," someone in the crowd exclaimed. "That's right, the stunning witch from the Triwizard Tournament." Another wizard, who had witnessed the competition, shouted with excitement. Fleur Delacour's name had become well known in the wizarding world a month ago. Not only had she captivated countless viewers with her enchanting appearance, but she also secured the runner-up position in the Triwizard Tournament with her formidable skills, earning fame across Europe. At that moment, Fleur appeared on the screen, her smile as warm and radiant as the spring sunshine. "Hi, my name is Fleur Delacour," she said in English, her French accent adding to her charm, and her voice was melodious, enchanting the audience. The previously restless wizards fell silent, their gaze locked on the TV screen, mesmerized by her voice. Seeing this, Gabrielle couldn't contain her excitement. "It's my sister! My sister is on TV!" The young girl's face beamed with pride and joy. Hermione touched her chin, pondering, the Vila's talent is indeed extraordinary, capable of transcending the limitations of the screen. Ethan smiled and complimented. "Beyond her talent, her charm is unparalleled. Her appearance and demeanor are unique, which is why I chose her as the host." Hermione snorted softly at his remark. On the TV, Fleur continued her work. "It's an honor to host Arcane Magic TV's first-ever pilot," she said, her pace perfect, ensuring every word reached the audience clearly. "Now, I'd like to introduce my partner, the renowned herbalist, pharmacist, and radio personality Tilden Toots, gentlemen." Following her introduction, a burly wizard approached. He sported a thick beard and wore a brown fisherman's hat, presenting a somewhat eccentric but distinctly charming appearance. Most notably, his fingers boasted 3 green thumbs, 2 on his left hand and 1 on his right. "Hello and welcome back to the Toots Sprout Show with me, Tilden Toots," he announced in his distinctive West Counties accent. The scene transitioned, mirroring the previous chapter, featuring Zhang Chu cosplaying Ruan Mei. Chapter 494, Tilden Toots and the Toots Sprout Show. The Toots Sprout Show, hosted by Tilden Toots, is the gold medal audio program of the Wizards radio channel, deeply cherished by its listeners. When Arcane Magic TV was first established, the future of television programming was uncertain. Ethan, recognizing the potential, invited Xenophilius, the popular magazine editor, to direct the TV station. He boldly adapted mature radio programs into television formats. To ensure the success of this venture, Ethan even purchased half of the shares of Wizard Radio. The appearance of Tilden Toots on the television screen stirred excitement among the wizards. "Isn't that Tilden Toots, the host from the Wizards Radio Syndicate? I listen to his show every week," exclaimed a wizard in surprise. Another curiously inquired, "How can this photo capture scenes for such a long duration? Can it actually record sound?" At that moment, Ethan heard Draco Malfoy's distinctive high-pitched voice from the crowd, praising Tilden Toots as a renowned herbalist and pharmacist whose potions were highly sought after. Draco boasted about Toots being married to the best-selling author Daisy Hookham and mentioned his invitation to a Malfoy family dinner party. Ethan glanced towards the source of the voice and saw Draco, flanked by Goyle and Crabbe, proudly navigating through the crowd to get a better view of the program. Draco, fascinated by the vivid images and sounds, expressed his eagerness to purchase a Magic TV, lamenting only the limited time he would have to enjoy it due to the upcoming school term. Draco's interest in the novel gadget had been piqued by his friend Astoria's mention of the Ethan family owning a Muggle TV set. Now, with Magic TV available, he was determined not to miss out. However, his excitement was tempered by the realization that his time to enjoy it would be brief. Suddenly, Ethan's voice reassured Draco. "Don't worry, I have equipped the common room of each house in Hogwarts with a Magic TV." Draco turned around, surprised and thrilled by Ethan's announcement. He eagerly thanked Ethan, delighted at the prospect of watching the latest Magic TV shows at the Academy. Ethan smiled and reassured Draco, emphasizing the importance of sharing this innovative gadget with everyone. After their conversation, Ethan and Hermione entered the Arcane Magic Appliances store. Inside, they noticed Mr. Lovegood animatedly discussing with a salesperson. Dressed in a bright yellow robe and with his silver-white hair bouncing with each gesture, Mr. Lovegood was a sight to behold. Gabriella couldn't help but laugh at the scene, while Ethan approached with a more composed demeanor. Curious, Ethan inquired, "Mr. Lovegood, is there a problem?" Mr. Lovegood, visibly frustrated, complained about the salesperson's policy of waiting until the pilot episode's conclusion before taking reservations, which he found aggravating. The saleswoman, recognizing Ethan as the influential figure behind the scenes, looked at him with a mix of grievance and confusion. She was unsure what harassment Mr. Lovegood referred to, but his tone and expression conveyed his annoyance clearly. Ethan frowned slightly and asked with some confusion, "Mr. Lovegood, didn't you receive the message before? Is there something wrong with the TV?" Mr. Lovegood rolled his eyes and quickly explained, "Oh no, the TV is fine. I wanted to help Luna's aunt buy another one. When she visited us before, she saw the TV pilot in advance and found it very interesting. So I want to buy another one for her so that she can enjoy such a wonderful program at home." Without using psychic powers, Ethan knew this must be a lie. Mr. Lovegood likely had a peculiar suspicion that there was a villain or something trapped in the TV, so he dismantled it without permission, and it broke. However, Ethan didn't intend to confront him about it. "I'll have someone send another TV set to your place," Ethan said immediately. He was pleased that the TV was so popular, so they continued to chat about TV programs. "Make sure the show is planned and filmed properly. Although we don't need to broadcast all day long at the beginning, during prime time, we must ensure the quality of the program," Ethan advised. He paused, looked at Xenophilius, and continued. "We have discussed it before. First, we will imitate their news program based on the Muggle video information provided. You can share information sources with the Quibbler so that our content will be richer and more diverse." Ethan thought for a while and added, "Oh, by the way, Ludo and I have already reached an agreement. The TV station will have the rights to broadcast live Quidditch matches, and you know how much wizards love this sport. Moreover, the previous live video of the Tri-Wizard tournament has been edited and only needs commentary to turn this part into an independent program." The more he talked, the more excited he became, as if he had already seen the brilliant future of the TV station. "We can also learn from the successful experience of the pilot program and transform some popular radio programs into our TV programs. In this way, our content will be more colorful and attract a larger audience." Ethan was hopeful that the TV station would be an instant success, which made him a bit verbose. Then he remembered something else, hesitated in front of Xenophilius for a while, and finally said, "As for TV commercials, we will accept as many as we can. Try to extend the program time as much as possible. This is a novel thing for wizards anyway, and it will be refreshing even if you watch the commercials. Moreover, you can use your experience in shooting commercials to lay a solid foundation for future TV series and movie productions." Updated for 3rd. Added update, 12. Please give me a wave of custom orders, flowers, monthly votes, comments, and rewards. If you have votes, please give them to me as the author. This is really important to me. Chapter 495. Under the warm but gentle sunshine of September, the heat had gradually subsided. The Hogwarts Express stood quietly on platform 9 3/4, releasing wisps of black steam. Amidst the bustling crowd on the platform, students and their families exchanged final farewells, the air thick with a mix of parting sorrow and anticipation for the new semester. Ethan's attention was captured by a figure donning a porter's hat. It was Alastair Moody, the real Mad-Eye. His hat was pulled low, shadowing his mismatched eyes and lending him an air of mystery. He limped towards the train, pushing a trolley laden with boxes. Harry, Ron, Sirius, and members of the Order of the Phoenix trailed closely behind. The group's atmosphere was tinged with solemnity, as if they were on an important mission. "Thank you, Ethan." Sirius approached Ethan, whispering his thanks so softly it was almost inaudible. Harry attempted to greet Ethan, but was promptly restrained by Moody. With a raised shoulder, Harry could only offer Ethan a helpless look. Ethan nodded slightly in understanding, then watched as the hurried group quickly moved past him. Thanks to the mansion technique, Ethan could travel between home and school at will, unencumbered by luggage, large or small. He effortlessly took Gabrielle's hand and boarded the train. Unlike before, he had to attend the prefects, meeting at the front of the train first. Thus, Ethan had to entrust Gabrielle to someone else temporarily. Navigating through the crowded carriage with ease, he finally arrived at the prefect's compartment reserved for Zhang Chu. The door slid open gently, revealing Luna already seated inside, her silver eyes dreamy and distant as usual. Upon seeing Ethan and Gabrielle, Luna greeted them with a joyful smile. Ethan handed Gabrielle over to Luna. Despite sometimes finding Luna a bit unreliable, considering their close friendship since the previous semester, Ethan chose to trust her. Surely, nothing untoward would happen, right? In the prefect conference room, Hermione and Zhang Chu were already there, engaged in lively conversation with a brown-haired girl, Angelina Johnson, an old acquaintance of Ethan's. As Gryffindor's chaser, she had been outplayed by Ethan on the Quidditch field for 3 consecutive years. Upon Ethan's arrival, Zhang Chu immediately stood up and offered him a seat between herself and Hermione. As Ethan sat down, Angelina, unable to contain her excitement, announced, "I'm the new captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team." She added provocatively, "We have a strong team this year, and since your senior Cirilla has graduated, the Quidditch Cup is definitely ours this time." Ethan couldn't help but laugh at her declaration. The last time Gryffindor had won the championship was when Charlie Weasley, of the Weasley family, was in his 2nd year, 10 years ago. Since then, Gryffindor's Quidditch team had seen 3 captains in a single term, each year proclaiming their championship aspirations with the same fervor but to no avail. This was one of Hogwarts Quidditch's long-standing illusions. Gryffindor's strength, Slytherin's age, and Hufflepuff's perceived weakness. Gryffindor was indeed strong, yet the championship remained elusive. As the 20th century drew to a close, the school began selecting the top 50 teams in Hogwarts history over the past century, including the strongest team. With such achievements, Professor McGonagall found it awkward to nominate current players. It was unthinkable to add a note to Harry's recommendation stating, "Untitled and super cute, bullied by Ethan, right?" Ethan observed Angelina's eager expression, amused by her enthusiasm. Reminded kindly, "Wood has graduated. Even he couldn't keep the goal in front of me. Gryffindor needs to find a more talented goalkeeper." "That's right." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Chu took over with a smile. "I have intensified my training this summer vacation, and I feel that I have made significant progress. You Gryffindors should be careful. I will not be merciful." Ethan N. could attest to this. After a morning of training during the summer vacation, Zhang Chu's agility attribute had improved by +1. Although it might seem minor, a single point increase in attributes can exponentially enhance one's abilities. For instance, an increase of 4 in strength attributes could potentially double one's actual strength. At that moment, Cedric Diggory, the captain of Hufflepuff, also joined the conversation. He sighed heavily. "We Hufflepuff also have to start scouting for new talent. Many players have graduated this year, and the team needs fresh blood." He has participated in 6 consecutive Quidditch games, and this year marks his 6th and final year. His only dream is to win the trophy. While everyone was engaging in lively conversation, the door of the box was gently pushed open again. A group of 5th-year students walked in cautiously. Leading them were Hufflepuff's new prefects, Ernie Macmillan and Hannah Abbott. For some reason, the mention of Hannah Abbott's name struck a chord with Ethan, as if it was embedded in his DNA. The Abbott family is renowned in the wizarding world, not only for running the Leaky Cauldron, the gateway to the wizarding world, but also for their involvement in the iron ore business. Hannah's ancestor, Hannah First, was a legendary blacksmith, earning the family the moniker Hannah the Iron. This family truly owned a mine. Following them was another new prefect from Ravenclaw, Padma Patil. Upon seeing Ethan, they immediately approached him. Being members of the Erudite Society, it was natural for them to rally around their president. At this moment, the entire conference box buzzed with excitement. Nearly 20 prefects from each house were present. According to Hogwarts rules, there are a total of 24 prefects, with each of the 4 houses having 2 male and female prefects from the 5th, 6th, and 7th grades. Although numerous, the most prestigious positions are the male and female student council presidents, who represent the student body and assist the professors in managing school affairs. Most of the prefects in the conference room were familiar faces to Ethan. Precisely, many were members of the Erudite Society. The status of prefect often signifies the best in the college, and many outstanding students join the Erudite Society for advanced studies. The Society's teachings enable its members to excel academically, making it easier for them to become prefects. Examples include Padma, Hannah, Ernie, and others. Of course, there were exceptions, such as Angelina and a few others who did not join the Erudite Society for various reasons. Since Ethan entered the conference room, the prefects from the Erudite Society gathered around him, looking at him with eyes filled with respect. Although the official leader of the prefects is the president of the student union, Ethan's respect surpassed even that of the student union president. It can only be said that, through the efforts of Hermione, the Erudite Society has established significant influence within Hogwarts. Ethan could confidently say, "The heroes of the world have come to my aid." After waiting for a moment, seeing that the door of the conference room remained undisturbed, Robert Hawking, the 7th grade boys prefect from Ravenclaw, suddenly stood up. He coughed twice to capture everyone's attention, then addressed Ethan. "President, since everyone is here, why don't you come and say a few words to us?" Ethan was taken aback by the request. He was familiar with Robert, a member of the 3rd class of the Erudite Society, known for his extraordinary talent in conjuration magic. Ethan also knew of Robert's distant relative, a figure of immense fame in the Muggle world, who, despite a physical disability, had become an outstanding scholar. His inspirational story was widely known. Ethan had heard tales of this relative in his previous life. However, upon inquiring privately, Robert revealed a darker side to his famous family member. The man was known to frequently visit an island with someone named Epstein for indulgent escapades and had peculiar habits that were disturbing, such as insisting on watching a young girl solve equations on a blackboard without any clothes, which was unsettling to hear. Bringing the conversation back to the present, Robert's suggestion caught Ethan off guard, prompting him to ask, "Isn't it the responsibility of the student union president to speak at the prefect's council?" "It's you who should speak, since you're here," came a response. Ethan turned to find Edmund Spears, a 7th-year Gryffindor student and the current president of the Boy Council, who was also a member of the Erudite Society and skilled in protective spells. The female student council president also nodded in agreement. "All right, let me say a few words," Ethan conceded, stepping forward to the front of the carriage. The student council president usually discusses the duties of prefects, which include patrolling, maintaining order, preventing students from fighting, and prohibiting the use of certain items, he began, pausing to survey the room. "Since I'm the one speaking, I believe it's important to offer a different perspective." Chapter 496. This semester, the Ministry of Magic has decided to station a special observer at Hogwarts. This is an unprecedented move, signaling the Ministry's intention to increase oversight of our school. "This development is concerning, and I urge everyone to be cautious," he began, scanning the room. The news sparked immediate whispers among the young wizards, but he pressed on. "Upon returning to your houses, please remind your peers to avoid unnecessary conflicts with this observer. Do not give her any reason to find fault, and refrain from arguing with her. Given the power dynamics, it's difficult for students to come out on top in such disputes." He paused before adding, "According to my contacts at the ministry, the new observer has a rather dubious reputation. Her presence could complicate our lives, so please be mindful of your actions. Ethan's gaze then shifted directly towards Ron, clearly signaling his concern. Taking a deep breath, he continued, "What's more troubling is that she was initially slated to be our Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. Although Professor Dumbledore has temporarily averted this, I doubt it will be a long-term solution. Those of you keen on excelling in Defense Against the Dark Arts should start planning your studies early this semester. Lastly, a word of caution. I'm aware some of you have parents working in the Ministry of Magic. However, if anyone leaks what I've shared to the new observer, I'll curse them to lose their hair permanently," Ethan warned, his smile not reaching his eyes. This reminder brought back memories of Ethan using a curse in retaliation against a wizard who had injured Ginny, leaving the wizard aged and toothless. The threat of merely losing hair seemed minor in comparison. "Okay, fellow prefects, if you have any questions or concerns, now is the time to raise them." "President Ethan, we're all concerned about the Defense Against the Dark Arts classes," Ernie Macmillan interjected, raising his hand. "With the OWLs approaching, could you offer guidance on exam focus and preparation strategies?" "Don't worry, Ernie. The Society will organize special tutoring sessions at the semester's end to systematically review the exam content. Last semester's makeup classes were a success, and we plan to open this year's sessions to all students, though non-society members will be charged a fee. Remember, this is a prefect meeting, and we should prioritize discussions relevant to our duties," Ethan replied, his tone reassuring. "Ethan, what if the new observer actively seeks to cause us trouble?" Hermione asked, voicing Harry's concerns. Ethan pondered for a moment before responding. As a ministry official, she likely has her own agenda and probably won't have the time to target ordinary students. However, my advice is to avoid conflicts with her. If necessary, seek help from Professor McGonagall, but be prepared for a challenging term. The Ministry of Magic interferes with Hogwarts. Ethan looked around again. Noticing that no one raised their hands, he nodded. "Okay, if there are no further questions, I suggest that the Student Council President introduce the specific responsibilities of the prefects to you." At this point, Ethan's tone became serious. "One more thing I want to emphasize is that although you are now prefects and have certain powers and status, you must not abuse these powers to bully others. The status of prefect means more responsibility and obligation, rather than making you superior to others. I hope you all will keep this in mind." After finishing, Ethan sat at the back of the conference room. Hermione and Zhangqiu also stood up and took seats on either side of him. This action attracted many envious glances toward Ethan. Then, the male student president, Edmund Spears, and the head girl stepped forward one after another and began to deliver their speeches. "You really like to be lazy," Zhangqiu approached Ethan and whispered in his ear. When others asked him to speak, he only spoke for 5 minutes and then ended. "I'm not the real student council president. People give me face, so of course I can't steal their limelight. Look how happy Spears is talking now." Ethan raised his head and glanced at the male student president who was talking eloquently, his face full of smiles. "Besides, if you talk too much, no one will want to hear it. When you don't understand something, you will naturally ask us." At this time, Hermione also came over and asked in a low voice, "Do you think the Ministry of Magic sent observers to Hogwarts this time to target Harry?" "In fact, it was more aimed at Dumbledore. Harry was just caught in the middle," Ethan replied. "The Ministry of Magic has always wanted to intervene in Hogwarts affairs, but Dumbledore was too powerful, and they never had the chance. Now, because of advocating the return of Voldemort, Dumbledore's popularity has reached an all-time low, which is their best chance. I think that the Observer will probably try to drive Dumbledore away, and then use the legal means of the Ministry of Magic to appoint themselves as the new headmaster." The meeting continued with the speeches of the two student presidents. However, it seemed that because Ethan had set the tone, or perhaps because of Ethan's presence, the speeches of the two student presidents did not last too long. After about 10 minutes, the meeting ended successfully. The prefects filed out of the conference room. Hermione walked to Ethan and said softly, "We should occasionally patrol the corridors to maintain order." She could guess Ethan's next plan without him having to say anything, completely ignoring the prefect's responsibilities, returning directly to his compartment, closing the door, and then staying inside without going out. Except for things of interest, Ethan became more and more indifferent to other matters. Seeing Hermione's expectant look, Ethan could only nod. Forget it. Just treat it as shopping with my girlfriend. Seeing this, Jiangchu also became happy. I've wanted to patrol with you for a long time. If someone dares to do bad things, we should punish them. At this moment, Ethan heard Ron whispering to Ernie Macmillan, I really want to catch Crabbe and Goyle right away and let them know that we are not easy to mess with. Hermione also heard this. She glanced at Ron sternly and pursed her lips, resembling Professor McGonagall. Padma Patil actually wanted to patrol the carriages with Ethan, but seeing the intimate figures of Jiangchu, Hermione, and Ethan, she didn't have the courage to step forward and disturb them. She stood there, feeling both disappointed and envious. All prefects are paired with one male and one female, but we can freely combine them during inspections. Hannah Abbott came over and took Padma's arm. They had a good relationship in the Polytechnic Society. How about it? Do you want to come with me? Her suggestion was met with a hopeful look from Padma. Padma's smile brightened the mood as she and Ethan walked out of the compartment. Ron and Macmillan, noticing their departure, decided to follow. It was Ron's first time being entrusted with such a responsibility, and he approached it with a mix of excitement and diligence. His eyes scanned every carriage and corner meticulously, resembling a vigilant hound on the lookout. As they made their way through the middle of the train, a sudden loud noise echoed in the aisle. A saleswoman, her face adorned with a warm smile and charming dimples, approached them with her cart. She greeted them enthusiastically. Honey, would you like to buy any snacks or drinks? I have a wide selection here. Ernie, his eyes gleaming with anticipation, eagerly began to peruse the offerings. ZZ honey candy, pineapple preserves, chocolate frogs, Drubel's best blowing gum. Ron listed the treats, picking out his favorites with excitement. Thanks to Ethan's investment, Arthur Weasley, Ron's father, had received a significant sum of galleons and was expected to earn a substantial amount in royalties over the next 20 years. This school year, Ron had more pock at money than ever before, allowing him to experience the joy of shopping for the first time. In that moment, he felt like the happiest person in the world. Oh my God, you bought so many snacks. Didn't you have breakfast? Macmillan exclaimed, astonished at the mountain of snacks in Ron's arms. Ron, with a grin of satisfaction, replied, I'm a bit hungry, true, but that's not a problem. We can share these treats, right? As he spoke, he opened a pack of ZZ honey candies, popped one into his mouth, and savored it with delight. He even began to sing, Candy always helps you make friends. However, Ron's singing was abruptly cut short by the sound of a compartment door sliding open. He turned to see Pansy Parkinson smirking at them, stepping aside to reveal Draco Malfoy and his cronies, Goyle and Crabbe, emerging behind her. The trio walked out with an air of triumph, their arrogance unmistakable. Chapter 497, Ron's Realization and Draco's Taunt. Ron suddenly realized that his act of singing might have been a bit foolish. Aha! Only you could do something so silly, Draco said slowly, his eyes mocking as they scanned the snacks in Ron's arms. Tell me, Weasley, how did it feel to buy something on the train for the first time? Doesn't it feel particularly novel and exciting? Ron glared at Draco and retorted, Shut up, Malfoy! Or, I'll show you what confinement tastes like. As he spoke, he puffed out his chest, revealing his prefect badge. Draco, momentarily taken aback by Ron's menacing demeanor, burst into laughter. Became a prefect, have you? Draco drawled. Congratulations, Weasley. It's a pity, though, that you don't have the authority to govern me. With that, he took out a green prefect badge from his pocket and pinned it to his chest, shaking it proudly. Pansy, too, displayed her prefect badge with a sneer. What? If a mere Weasley can be a prefect, why can't we? What a joke. Ha! As if a badge makes any difference, Malfoy. You're still a loser who only knows how to show off, Ron shot back, unfazed. So, take your lackeys and leave me alone. Don't mess with me. Draco, with a proud smile, raised his chin. I heard you took the prefect position that should have belonged to Potter. How daring of you. However, you'd better behave. I'll be watching you like a hawk to see if you dare to step out of line." He glanced at Ron contemptuously before turning to leave. Despite Draco's arrogant words, he was aware that Ethan did not approve of the trouble he caused Harry. Yet, he also recognized that Ethan shared his disdain for Ron. Thus, Draco's focus was solely on Ron. Following this exchange, Pansy, along with the clumsy Crabbe and Goyle, headed to the food cart. After selecting some snacks, they returned to their compartment and slammed the door shut, restoring calm to the carriage, leaving Ron and Ernie alone. Ernie, noticing Ron's flushed face and sensing his embarrassment and anger, attempted to lighten the mood. "Hey, Ron, I've always thought that pepper imps are the best candy. They're mints that make your ears smoke. Want to try one?" He offered one to Ron, hoping to distract him. Meanwhile, at Hermione's insistence, Ethan reluctantly began his patrol. As they moved between carriages, Hermione and Jiang Chu appeared serious, fulfilling their prefect duties, while Ethan seemed distracted. "Everything is fine in this compartment as well," Jiang Chu observed, noting a group of quietly reading students. Ethan nodded, but found his thoughts wandering. The prefect's duties, patrolling, maintaining order, and preventing fights or the use of prohibited items, suddenly reminded him of something important. He recalled the prohibited items he had recently confiscated: constipation kernels, quick-acting truant candy, big dung eggs, boxing binoculars. He noticed the Arcane Eyes logo on them, identical to the logos of Arcane Magic TV and Arcane Magic appliances. The logo, a blue eyeball with 2 lightning bolts derived from the magical rune of Arcane Wisdom, was Ethan's design for his products. With Ethan's substantial investment and technical support, the Weasley twins' business had flourished over the past school year. Their prank products, under the soon-to-be-launched Arcane Magic Joke Company, had become immensely popular, thanks to Ethan's backing. In Hogwarts, with wizards from the Learned Society providing a steady stream of raw materials, the twins' production capacity was fully guaranteed. Ethan's technical support allowed their creativity to flourish endlessly. Even better, the twins had Ethan, a well-known investor, as their advertisement. With Ethan's fame blessing their venture, the prank props they produced nearly dominated the Hogwarts market. If any Hogwarts student thought of buying prank products, the twins were their first thought. However, most of these prank products were prohibited items at Hogwarts, presenting a dilemma. As a prefect, Ethan faced a conundrum. Should he confiscate high-end products when he saw others using them, or should he turn a blind eye? Despite having broken school rules himself by sneaking out at night, he had never been caught. Hogwarts had an unwritten rule: as long as you weren't caught, you could do whatever you wanted. But if Ethan started confiscating the prohibited prank products, he worried about alienating the twins' loyal customers and negatively impacting their business. After all, the twins' business model relied on a close relationship with the student body, who were their primary market and would be for decades to come. Upon reflection, Ethan realized that the twins' products had almost formed a monopoly in the school. Although students complained, if their items were confiscated, they would ultimately have to repurchase from the twins. This cycle not only maintained school order, but also stimulated domestic demand and consumption, a win-win situation. With this realization, Ethan stopped worrying and joined Hermione in confiscating the prohibited prank props. After Hermione decisively handled several young wizards attempting to play with fireworks in the train aisle, Ethan was finally free from patrolling. They returned to the prefect's compartment, where Ethan noticed Luna and Gabri were absent. He found them in the next compartment, happily chatting with Ginny, Harry, and Neville. Neville was holding a peculiar plant, introducing it with great interest. The plant, known as Mibu Miba, was a rare species from Assyria with a strong self-defense mechanism. It was cylindrical, topped with a large lump, and covered in boil-like protrusions that could spray a thick, foul-smelling liquid when threatened. Relieved that there hadn't been any trouble, Ethan was about to return to his compartment when he suddenly spotted a familiar figure standing nearby. At the door of the compartment stood Professor Remus Lupin. "Professor Lupin, I really didn't expect to see you here." Upon seeing him, Ethan immediately stepped forward and took the initiative to shake hands with Professor Lupin. I'm so happy to be able to take your Defense Against the Dark Arts class again." Professor Lupin held Ethan's hand tightly and affectionately patted his shoulder with his other hand. "I am also very happy to officially serve as your professor again," he sighed. "The substitute teaching time at the end of last semester was too short. Professor Lupin, as much as I enjoy your classes, you shouldn't be returning to Hogwarts this year, especially under these circumstances." Ethan took the opportunity to pull Professor Lupin into the compartment and lowered his voice. "Fudge is trying every possible means to cause trouble for Dumbledore. If your identity is discovered by them, I'm afraid they will use it as a reason to attack Dumbledore and interfere in Hogwarts affairs." Professor Lupin nodded slightly, indicating that he understood Ethan's concerns. "I also have such concerns, but this time it is Dumbledore's arrangement. He told me that Fudge had planned to send one of his men to teach Defense Against the Dark Arts this year. Dumbledore argued fiercely with them and finally succeeded in vetoing their proposal, using their knowledge of the Dementor's unprovoked attack on Harry." A satisfied smile appeared on Lupin's face, and he seemed very optimistic about the current situation. He continued, "Now, Fudge can only let the official who originally managed the Dementors, Witch Dolores Umbridge, enter the school as an observer. Therefore, as long as we act carefully and don't give her any clues, Fudge has no reason to directly intervene in Hogwarts affairs." Lupin paused and then added, "It's a pity that Dumbledore can't find anyone else he trusts to serve as Defense Against the Dark Arts professor in a short period of time, and he is not willing to let Snape transfer to this position. Sirius wants to run the family business and fight against Fudge in public opinion, so he can only let me go. You are right about this. My identity is indeed a potential hidden danger. I will be more careful not to let my identity be exposed." At this time, the trolley for buying food came over, and Ethan and Lupin ended their conversation and returned to their compartment. Chapter 498. The prefect's box was still spacious and comfortable, with soft velvet cushions on the seats that made one reluctant to get up once seated. Beyond the comfortable seating, the box was equipped with tea and snacks, as well as a row of bookshelves. Ethan glanced at the books on the shelf, noting titles like Annals of Magical Beasts, to which he often contributed, Transfiguration Today, Practical Potions Master, and Magic Innovations. These were clearly selected to encourage prefects to engage in academic reading during their travels. It seemed the Hogwarts professors were subtly suggesting that idle time should be spent enriching one's mind with scholarly articles. However, the reality often fell short of this ideal. Zhang Chu, for instance, never showed interest in these academic journals. She preferred admiring the scenery outside the window or engaging in conversations with friends. Currently alone, she set aside the scholarly books and eagerly read The Quibbler. A few years ago, before Ethan acquired a stake in The Quibbler, she had no interest in what she considered a third-rate publication, filled with tales of horned snore beasts and harassing beasts that seemed neither real nor entertaining. But now, The Quibbler had transformed. With Ethan's influence, Xenophilius Lovegood began covering topics like the Crystal Skull, the Bermuda Triangle, the 2012 apocalypse, 5G radiation, mask antennas, and lizard men ruling the world, urban legends among Muggles, always prefaced with, "That's what Muggles say." This approach attracted more readers, offering intriguing stories that satisfied wizards' curiosity about Muggles, even if the stories weren't true. Zhang Chu found these stories fascinating, unlike the academic journals which she humorously thought even dogs wouldn't read. However, some, like Hermione, were engrossed in these scholarly works. Hermione was so absorbed in the Fantastic Beasts Almanac that she seemed capable of spending the entire day with it. Ethan remembered his first time in Zhang Chu's prefect car, initially puzzled by the professor's arrangement and wondering if Hermione had influenced it after sending a letter to Dumbledore. He later discovered it was Professor McGonagall's doing. Suddenly, a loud noise from outside the door shattered the tranquility of the box. Ethan turned to see Ron and Malfoy arguing fiercely at the door of the next box, both red-faced and seemingly on the verge of a fight. Although the soundproof door muffled their words, Ethan could guess the nature of their argument from Malfoy's provocative expression and Ron's angry demeanor. Malfoy was likely stirring trouble between Ron and Harry again, rehashing the old grievance of Ron taking Harry's position as prefect. Crabbe and Goyle watched, laughing and exacerbating the situation. Ron, visibly shaking with anger, grabbed Neville's Meebo from the windowsill. The object, which slightly pulsed and resembled a diseased organ, emitted an ominous vibe. Without hesitation, Ron threw the Meebo at Malfoy. Demonstrating an accuracy reminiscent of the twins' batting skills, the Meebo traced a perfect arc through the air and landed squarely in Malfoy's mouth. Malfoy's attempt to retort was cut short as the Meebo, once agitated, began to spurt. A large amount of liquid was forcefully pushed into Malfoy's mouth, deeply into his throat. Malfoy's swallowing reflexes were triggered, and in a panic, his tongue circled around the end of the plant, pressing against its boil. This action greatly stimulated the plant, causing it to release a thick, dark green juice from the boils on its body. The juice splattered everywhere inside the carriage, covering the ceiling and windows with disgusting splotches, reminiscent of exploding beef balls. Ron instinctively took cover behind the door. Although the juice missed his face, it drenched his head, leaving him with a slimy, dirty mess atop his scalp. Neville was less fortunate, receiving a direct blast of the thick juice to his face. He shook his head, trying to clear the juice from his eyes, particularly the one most affected. Luna, with her quick reflexes, used the quibbler to shield her face just in time, avoiding the unpleasant spray. Ginny's reaction was even more impressive. Her agility, honed from becoming a professional Quidditch player and further enhanced by special combat training at Ethan's house over the summer, allowed her to act swiftly. After joining the Genius Club and consuming a permanent attribute elixir, her agility had significantly increased. When the juice flew towards her and Gabrielle, she quickly cast a barrier spell, erecting a transparent wall that blocked the incoming spray. Harry, however, was in the worst position. Occupied with catching Leaf, he was unable to defend himself against the splash. Like Neville, he was hit directly in the face, with the thick juice even entering his mouth, its foul smell comparable to feces. Yet, the small amount he ingested paled in comparison to Malfoy's ordeal. Malfoy, with the plant lodged deep in his throat, screamed in horror as more juice spurted out. His muffled cries for help were barely intelligible. Goyle and Crabbe, standing behind Malfoy, were spared from the attack. Overcoming the stench, they moved to assist him. Goyle attempted to pull the plant out of Malfoy's mouth, but ended up getting sprayed on the hand. Crabbe, more decisive, slapped Malfoy on the back of the head. The slap, neither too light nor too heavy, made Malfoy dizzy, but also dislodged the plant, sending it flying towards Ron and hitting him on the head. Ron, in pain, managed to knock the plant off. Malfoy's condition worsened as the plant's juice, having been forced deep into his throat, entered his nasal cavity and esophagus, causing extreme nausea. The stench, coupled with Crabbe's slap, overwhelmed him. He lay on the ground, rolling in agony, his face pale, and cried out that he was poisoned, fearing for his life. His cries filled the carriage, causing alarm among the others. Harry, momentarily stunned by Malfoy's distress, quickly tried to rid himself of the juice he had accidentally swallowed, fearing he too might be poisoned. Ron quickly wiped all the juice from his head and then glanced at Harry with a nervous expression, worried he might be the next target. Harry, meanwhile, covered his neck again. He had just remembered the mosquito bite there. Could it be a wound? He wondered if the toxin could have already entered his bloodstream through the bite. Seeing Harry's concern, Ron reassured him. "Harry, don't worry. I think I read in a Muggle book my father bought that if someone is bitten by a poisonous snake, you can suck the poison out with your mouth. Let me help you with that." Harry, taken aback by the suggestion, but recalling he had heard something similar before, nodded eagerly, urging Ron to act quickly. However, Ron calmly added, "The book also mentions some first aid tips. Before attempting this method, the rescuer must ensure they don't have any oral ulcers, as it could be dangerous to suck out the poison. Luckily, I don't have any ulcers right now." With that, he embraced Harry and moved his mouth to Harry's neck. The commotion in their compartment grew louder, especially with Malfoy's high-pitched scream cutting through the soundproof glass and reaching Ethan's ears. Hermione, usually buried in her studies, could no longer ignore the disturbance. She looked up, annoyed. "What's all that noise next door? Can someone please ask them to keep it down?" Ethan shrugged, indicating he was reluctant to intervene. However, Hermione's request was clear, and there was no point in delaying. Standing up, Ethan opened the door of their compartment, ready to address the chaos unfolding next door. Please support this story with your likes, monthly votes, comments, and rewards. Your votes are incredibly important to me as the author. Chapter 499. Ethan carefully pushed open the door of the next compartment. The scene before him was almost comical enough to make him burst into laughter. Malfoy was sprawled on the ground, his lips quivering as he shouted, "Poisonous! Poisonous! I'm going to die!" His eyes were wide with desperation, as if he truly believed his end was near. Goyle and Crabbe hovered over Malfoy anxiously. Goyle was pressing down on Malfoy's chest, attempting to stabilize him, while Crabbe took a deep breath, ready to administer artificial respiration. However, their efforts seemed far from effective. Malfoy's first kiss, intended for Pansy Parkinson, was unexpectedly claimed by Crabbe's thick lips. Crabbe, notorious for his poor dental hygiene, breathed into Malfoy, causing his condition to worsen as Malfoy's eyes rolled back in distress. In stark contrast, Harry's situation was entirely different. He sat in a chair, his expression inscrutable. A look of ecstasy crossed his face, suggesting enjoyment, yet there was also a hint of discomfort that made him squirm and moan. Ron was draped over Harry's neck, his mouth close to his skin, leaving one to wonder whether he was attempting to suck blood or engage in some peculiar activity. Neville crouched nearby, holding a limp Mimbulus Mimbletonia with a forlorn expression. The poor plant had endured much abuse, first being tossed around like a rag doll, then being squeezed for its juice. Once robust at 13, it was now wilted and frail, unable to stand erect. In the corner of the compartment, Luna, Ginny, and Gabrielle huddled together. One hid behind a magazine, another shielded her eyes with her hands, and the third covered her face with a silk scarf, all seemingly unable to bear the sight. Yet, upon closer inspection, one could see 2 holes poked in Luna's quibbler, slits between Ginny's fingers, and the sheer fabric of Gabrielle's scarf hardly obscured anything. The 3 girls watched the unfolding drama with keen interest, seemingly unfazed by the chaos. Observing this, Ethan shook his head in resignation and announced, "Stop howling. The Mimbulus Mimbletonia stench is not poisonous." His voice, though not loud, carried an undeniable authority, silencing the compartment instantly. Malfoy ceased his screaming. Crabbe and Goyle halted their misguided resuscitation efforts. Harry sat up as if jolted by electricity. Ron quickly retreated from his neck, and the 3 girls ceased their covert observations. Upon noticing Ethan, Ginny eagerly seized the opportunity to demonstrate her skills. She waved her wand and crisply commanded, "Clean up." With a flick of her wand, the foul stench vanished, and the air in the compartment freshened. Harry touched his neck, finding a conspicuous strawberry mark hidden from view, resembling a birthmark. Malfoy scrambled to his feet, hastily adjusting his clothes, wary of Ethan's judgment. He shot a glare at Harry and Ron before swiftly exiting the compartment. With the chaos resolved, Ethan nodded to everyone and returned to Zhang Chu's compartment. The 3 girls, as if still detecting a lingering odor, hurriedly moved to the next compartment, leaving Harry, Ron, and Neville behind. The 2 groups engaged in conversation across the compartments, recounting the recent events with a mix of amusement and shock. Ron, still fuming, tore open a bag of potato chips and began eating voraciously, as if trying to devour his anger. Between bites, he grumbled, "Damn Malfoy, if I could deduct points from him, I would." Ginny, finding amusement in her brother's irritation, gently reminded him, "Don't forget, prefects can't deduct points from each other." Ron snorted in frustration, muttering, "I know, but what about Crabbe and Goyle? I can always find something on them." "Prefects shouldn't abuse their power, Ron," Hermione interjected sternly. "Yes, that's true, but Malfoy would never abuse his power," Ron countered, frowning. "He just wanted to deduct points from Neville." "So you have to stoop to his level?" Hermione challenged. "No, I just want tap dance. Oh, show him that he can't bully my friend without consequences," Ron retorted loudly. Amidst their argument, Harry attempted to mediate. "For Merlin's sake, Ron." Ron's mood suddenly lifted as he had an idea. "Hey, I've got it. I'll make Gower write lines. That'll teach him. He hates writing more than anything. Lowering his voice, Ron mimicked Gower with a hoarse tone, contorting his face as if in agony, and pretended to write in the air, I will never be like a baboon's. But his imitation sent Ginny and Gabri into fits of laughter. The train continued its journey northward, navigating the winding rails. Outside, the weather was capricious. Raindrops intermittently tapped against the window, occasionally giving way to brief glimpses of sunlight. However, these moments were fleeting, quickly obscured by passing clouds in a playful game of hide-and-seek with the passengers. As evening approached, the train's lights illuminated the carriage with a soft, yellow glow. Gabrielle, curious, pressed her forehead against the window, straining to see the landscape outside. But it was a moonless night, and all that could be seen were raindrops streaking diagonally across the window, blurring the view. The train began to slow, and the cabin buzzed with activity. The sounds of luggage, pets, and passengers' chatter filled the air as everyone prepared to disembark. Hermione, Zhang Chu, and Ron, tasked with maintaining order, left the carriage, entrusting Ethan with seeing Gabrielle off. This year, Hagrid was absent for the first time in decades, regardless of the weather, and Professor Grapeland took his place. Holding an old oil lamp, she called out to the newcomers, Freshmen, please come here and line up. All first years, follow me. Before departing, Gabrielle hugged Ethan tightly, her voice trembling. Ethan, I want to go to Ravenclaw. What if I'm not sorted there? Her nervousness was palpable, having heard other freshmen discuss the sorting. Don't worry, Gabri. Sorting isn't as frightening as it seems. You're not being asked to defeat a giant monster. Just relax, believe in yourself, and everything will be fine. Ethan reassured her, keeping the tradition of not revealing the sorting process to the first years. Gabrielle nodded, albeit doubtfully, and carefully followed Professor Grapeland along with the other anxious first years. Ethan remained outside Hogsmeade Station, watching Gabrielle's figure disappear into the distance. He didn't rush to the Thestral carriages waiting nearby, but waited until the crowd thinned. Most students had already boarded when Zhang Chu and Hermione, having ensured no one was left behind, joined him. Together, they boarded one of the last Thestral carriages, where Ginny and Luna were already seated, having kept each other company. Ethan was intently observing the Thestrals hitched between the carriage shafts, clearly fascinated by their appearance. The Thestrals had an unusual form. Their bodies were large and horse-like, yet devoid of any excess flesh. Their black fur clung tightly to their skeletal frames, making each of the 973 bones distinctly visible. Their heads bore a resemblance to dragons, and their white eyes lacked pupils. A long black tail trailed behind them, and wings extended from the ridge of their shoulder bones. From the neighboring carriage, Harry voiced his confusion. I really don't understand. Weren't these carriages able to move on their own before? Why are they being pulled by these eerie black-winged horses this year? Harry found the sight of these motionless, silent creatures in the encroaching darkness to be strange and foreboding. Move on their own. Ethan pondered briefly before realizing what Harry meant. At that moment, Luna, who was seated next to him, set down the Quibbler. Her silver eyes met Harry's as she said, You're talking about Thestrals, aren't you? Being able to see them means you've experienced something related to death in the final event of the Triwizard Tournament. Ethan saw Harry's puzzled look and elaborated, Thestrals are very special creatures. Only those who have truly faced death can see them. Though they may appear frightening, Thestrals actually possess an exceptional sense of direction. Just tell them your destination, and no matter how distant or complex the journey, they will navigate accurately. He paused, then added, In fact, Thestrals have always been pulling the carriages, but most people can't see them. Despite Ethan and Luna's thorough explanations, Harry still couldn't warm up to the daunting appearance of these creatures. He frowned and looked away. Harry wasn't alone in his feelings. This year, it seemed that a significantly larger number of people could see the Thestrals, with Ginny among them. As Ethan waited for Zhang Chu and Hermione, he heard the astonished reactions of several young wizards. This made sense, considering that during the finals of the Triwizard Tournament, Ethan had demonstrated his formidable skills in front of the entire school, defeating more than one Death Eater. Now, having personally experienced death, it was understandable why more students could now see the Thestrals. Chapter 500, The Thestral Carriage. As the Thestral carriage made its way to the castle, Hermione suddenly brought up a point. Did you notice that Hagrid didn't come to welcome the new students this year? Luna, with a thoughtful blink, speculated, I remember his course evaluation last year wasn't very good. Maybe he received too many complaints, and Principal Dumbledore had to let him go, right? Perhaps Dumbledore decided to have Professor Grapeland take over his course. After all, Professor Grapeland did take Hagrid's class last semester, and everyone seemed to enjoy it. This is impossible, Harry exclaimed, unable to contain his disbelief. He glared at Luna, asserting firmly, Professor Dumbledore would never fire Hagrid. He looked around, seeking agreement. Hagrid's classes are quite interesting, and we all like him, right? However, his attempt to find supporters fell flat as everyone averted their gaze, leaving Harry without a response. Luna, with a light toss of her head, teased, Oh, is that so? How many snails do you plan to raise this semester? Harry, momentarily speechless, wore an embarrassed expression as he recalled the chaos and the thrill of being chased by a group of snails from the previous school year. He hesitated before admitting, Well, maybe I won't keep any this time. Hermione appeared worried, though not about Hagrid being imprisoned in Azkaban for illegally raising and transforming dangerous creatures. She knew that if such a situation arose, Onyxia would be there to support them. Amidst the ongoing discussion, Ethan revealed the true reason behind Hagrid's absence. Actually, Hagrid didn't come to welcome the new students because he occasionally needs to visit his giant brother in the reserve. The mention of a giant brother caused Luna's silver eyes to widen in surprise and Hermione to express disbelief. Ethan nodded affirmatively. Remember the giants I brought back during the summer vacation? Jiangsu, with a shudder, recalled, I remember it vividly. I was awakened by deafening voices in the middle of the night, only to find a group of giants in my yard. I thought I was having a nightmare. Ethan scratched his head, slightly embarrassed. That's mainly because the Ural Mountains are too far from the Yin Kingdom. I needed to make a layover. He explained that using the mansion's spell to anchor the demiplane was more mana efficient than directly transporting the giants across 4,000 kilometers. Among those giants was Hagrid's half-brother, he added, clarifying the familial connection and shedding light on Hagrid's absence. This revelation caused a stir among the carriage's occupants, but it also provided a plausible explanation for Hagrid's absence. As the Thestral carriage finally arrived at Hogwarts and halted in front of the castle, Harry, eager to share the news with Ron, quickly disembarked and rushed towards the hall. Inside the hall, the flickering torch flames cast a warm glow, and the students' footsteps echoed across the stone-paved floor, mingling with occasional whispers. They proceeded towards the auditorium's doors, where the opening banquet was about to commence. In the auditorium, 4 long house tables were neatly arranged, with slender candles floating above, casting a soft light reminiscent of stars against the magically enchanted ceiling that mimicked a night sky adorned with cumulonimbus clouds. Upon entering, Ethan parted ways with Hermione and Ginny, joining Jiangsu and Luna at the Ravenclaw table, where their fellow housemates had saved their usual seats. After settling down, Ethan's gaze shifted to the staff table, where he noticed Dolores Umbridge seated next to Dumbledore. Umbridge, with her short stature and plump figure, was hard to miss. Her short, curly taupe hair was adorned with a garish, oversized pink bow, complementing the fluffy pink cardigan she wore over her robes. The ensemble was, to put it mildly, unremarkable. Professor Dumbledore, in contrast, exuded elegance in a dark purple robe dotted with silver stars, his matching hat sitting atop his head as he sat in a golden, high-backed chair. He listened to Umbridge's whispers with a poised expression, a faint smile playing on his lips. Despite their apparent annoyance with each other, they managed to present a facade of harmony that could easily deceive the uninformed observer into thinking they shared a close relationship. When Professor Grubbly Plank took Hagrid's usual seat, Ethan's attention was drawn towards the entrance. Professor Grubbly Plank's presence indicated that the first-year students had made their journey across the Black Lake and arrived at the castle. True to his expectations, the heavy wooden doors to the hall creaked open moments later, revealing a procession of wide-eyed first-year students led by Professor McGonagall. They marched into the hall, their expressions a mix of excitement and apprehension. Atop a simple wooden stool placed by Professor McGonagall was the Sorting Hat, its appearance bearing the marks of time, with patches and frayed edges. A prominent tear near the brim seemed to narrate its long history. As the new students filed in, the hall's buzzing chatter dwindled to silence, all eyes fixated on the newcomers. The first years lined up in front of the staff table, their faces pale under the candlelight. Most of them looked nervous, their lips pressed tightly together. Gabrielle, however, appeared composed, though her clenched fists betrayed her anxiety. The members of the Genius Club had respected the traditions of the wizarding world by not disclosing the nature of the Sorting Hat to Gabrielle. While waiting outside the hall, Gabrielle had overheard numerous speculations among the young wizards about the mysterious test they were about to undergo. The rumors grew increasingly wild, amplifying her unease. Suddenly, the Sorting Hat burst into song, its voice filling the hall. Unlike its typically unpleasant tunes, this year's song carried a grave message, warning of dangers facing Hogwarts and the importance of unity. It recounted the story of Hogwarts' founders, emphasizing their initial unity and subsequent disagreements. The Sorting Hat's message was clear: unity is strength. Ethan mused that if Hagrid were present, the Sorting Hat might have chosen its words more carefully. He humorously thought about Hagrid's ability to break wands, especially those crafted by Ollivander, and contrasted it with the resilience of his own fairy silver wands. The Sorting Hat's intentions were undoubtedly noble, emphasizing the power of unity and cooperation among all at Hogwarts. United as one, with an unbreakable friendship, Hogwarts can overcome any difficulty and continue to stand strong. When the Sorting Hat concluded its newly composed song, the Great Hall erupted in applause, albeit reluctantly. No one was eager to hear its discordant melody again. This time, however, the applause was intermingled with whispers, and many faces mirrored Ethan's expression of surprise. Typically, the Sorting Hat's song emphasized the virtues valued by the four houses of Hogwarts and its role in sorting students into their respective houses. This time, however, it offered unprecedented advice to the school. As Professor McGonagall began to call out the names of the first-year students, the murmurs in the Great Hall ceased instantly. Everyone listened intently, not wanting to miss a single name. As the names were announced, the line of first-year students gradually shortened. One by one, all four houses welcomed their new members. It was only towards the end that Ethan heard Professor McGonagall call out Gabrielle's name. Gabrielle walked forward with a steady pace, her face devoid of nervousness or panic. "Look, everyone, this is Fleur's sister from Beauxbaton. She joined us last semester," Ethan explained to his Ravenclaw classmates. "She liked it here so much that she transferred from Beauxbatons to Hogwarts this year." Gabrielle sat on the stool and took a deep breath before placing the Sorting Hat on her head. Unlike the other young wizards, whose fates were quickly decided, the Sorting Hat seemed to ponder for a long time with Gabrielle. It was as if it were delving deep into her mind, searching for something. Finally, the hat's brim parted and it announced loudly, "Slytherin." The announcement sent a wave of excitement through the Great Hall. The Slytherins, led by Malfoy, erupted into cheers and applause. However, Gabrielle did not seem pleased with the outcome. She walked towards the Slytherin table with heavy steps, casting pitiful glances at Ethan, who was seated at the Ravenclaw table. This moment captured Gabrielle's transition into her new life at Hogwarts.